I was like, okay, all right.
10 seconds.
It does look good.
Let's call this meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village of Holly, our special council meeting on Tuesday, June 10th. Roll call, please. Lisa.
Weinbrenner.
Here.
Wendell.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Koskela.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
Kyer.
Here.
Brandon.
Here. We have a quorum. Pledge of Allegiance, please. This is a call to the audience. At this time, members of the audience may address council. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time.
Madam President, the microphone isn't on out there.
Thank you, Mr. Wendell. Thank you, Tim. Okay, public comment, please. Ms. Mattson.
Anna Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I've spent a lot of time explaining why Holly is in this financial mess like building this office, but now it's time to bring solutions. Tonight, I'm here with a legal, practical solution to get you the $500,000 you need by June 20th without breaking our charter with an illegal tax assessment. Here's my plan. First, the Water and Sewer Department generates $1 million in profit annually, enough to cover the bond payments costing households $37 a month. Remove that bond from our bills and use the department's profit to pay it off. It's a break-even move which still leaves about $8 million in the account for emergencies. Right there, you would show residents you are willing to work for us by taking the bond off that we've been asking for years. Next, to meet your June 20th deadline, take a loan out of the water department. Use the loan to cover the deficit. It's a simple legal fix. It's a temporary fix, but it's a fix. If you can't finance operating expenses out of the water department, refinance assets we have paid off. Next, call a special election in November. Put 2 separate millages on the ballot, one for fire, one for police. People are more likely to support them if they're split. By my calculations, each millage should be between 1.5 and 2 mills. By November, you would have saved residents $37 a month on their water bill. That goodwill will make people more open to voting for a tax increase. If the millages pass, the tax increase actually offsets the water bill savings, so residents pay no more overall. It's a wash, but it funds police and fire, services people value. Now, for this to work, we residents have demands. You need our support, and frankly, we can tank your tax assessment by packing this room, forcing a new meeting past your deadline according to the Open Meetings Act. So we encourage you to work with us. Here's what we expect from each of you. Brian, create a master plan with a capital improvement schedule for roads, pipes, and infrastructure, including cost, timelines, and we want to see grant applications. Chief Narsh, enforce the law. Ticket speeders in residential areas and school zones. Residents want safety. Chief Watson, prioritize ambulance transfer services so we can bring in revenue for your department. Ms. Brandon and Tim Price, stop pushing cityhood. It's a costly distraction the village can't afford. Residents have rejected it twice. Respect that. Finally, council, stop governing by crisis. Plan for the future. Also, fire your attorney. He's costing us more than he's worth, and you have the power to act. Most of you, if not all of you, know he is actually a liability to this village. He has walked you right into costly legal battles. The reason he is still here is the reason why we are in this financial situation. Council bows down to bureaucrats. Put an end to this and hire someone new.
Thank you,
I
Ms.
need
Mattson.
I'd
15
like to make a
seconds.
motion to give her another 2 minutes.
I need 15 seconds.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
This plan gets you your money legally. Most importantly, gives residents a say and shows you're serious about change. Take it, work with us, and let's give the power back to the people. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Jane?
Good evening, City Village Council. My name is Jane Bice-DeSessa, and I live on East Holly Road here in Holly. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for giving us the opportunity to listen to what you have to say. Most of you may know that I've been a city manager for more than 30 years, so I have been here before. But I know that if we work together, we can come through this. I know we're strong, we're a great village, we have good administrators here, and I have all the confidence in the world that we will come up with a plan that is good for all. So please know that you have my 100% support. And if there's anything that I can do to help, please let me know that I'm here. But most importantly, this is a great village, and the only way that we're going to come out of this is by working together. There is no one solution to everything that we need. I know what you're talking about, but we need to take a look at it very carefully. And as a resident of this community, I thank each and every one of you. And to our employees that are here right now, I say, please hang on. This too shall pass, and we'll make our community even better. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Any further public comment? Hearing none, seeing none. We will move into the budget discussion.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sir, please approach and state your name and address for the record.
I guess it was about to be over and I didn't realize it. What I've got to talk about, something like I did the last time,
Can you please state your
You
name and
here?
address?
is about to hold down country
Can you say your
being
name and address
broke.
for the record, please, sir? Would you mind saying your name and your address for the record, please?
Oh,
Thank
pardon
you.
me. Jess Ballard, 202 Lakeview in Holly. And this situation, I'm not gonna have time to say everything I'd like to, but you gotta concentrate on this country being broke. The national debt is almost twice the amount of the gross national product. There's gonna have to be a tax increase through the federal government to get that thing in line, to get things lined out. It's $35,000 credit card debt averaged out through the country. You're looking at bankruptcies. Just recently, the housing market is starting to decline. There's 33% less people looking for a house than there was a few months ago. The reason is unaffordable. Interest rates up. They can't afford it. The automotive industry is on the verge of being to where the average person cannot buy you a new car anymore. That's already here. Leasing has taken the place of buying because people can't afford to buy. And there's already been one tax assessment for this year. And I'm sure that was based on the national inflation rate. And it can't be raised more than that. You people know that if you know anything. So if you add something on top of that, it's probably illegal. And for it to be legal, it's got to be voted on through a ballot box. You know that. Just like this water deal that we're still paying for. Those bonds were sold, without people voting on it. That's against the law. And there's a Supreme Court ruling that says you can't do anything like those bonds that will be added on to property taxes. And you've got to learn how to cut back. I was just reading the first page there on that about the fire department. They're trained like there was national emergency or something. Cut back and refine them to the village of Holly who's paying their salary. That's the only thing to do. Forget about a wildfire out in the Macomb County or somewhere and this and that. Cut back and limit them to the village of Holly. We're the ones that's paying their salary. And take a look at pension. I've got a hunch that pension is a way in part of this. And there's limitations to pensions the same as there is hourly pay or salary pay. I know you people think I'm a crazy old man, but believe me, this country is going to default if things don't get brought under control. And you people, it's your people's job to bring it under control locally.
I'd like to make a motion for him to give him another minute.
Is there a second? I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You have one more minute, Jeff. Thank you.
We can't help what Oakland County does. We can't help what Lansing does. But believe me, we can help what happens here in Holly. Now leave the tax thing alone and shelve it and forget about it. Get the carving knife out and do whatever you have to get things trimmed down to a budget that we can afford. And hopefully we'll all can see the future without being in bankruptcy. And thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further public comment? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Jan Van Zelfte, and I live at 15226 Weller Court. I actually didn't come here prepared with anything to say. I just came to observe. But I kind of feel like I represent most residents of Holly, where I've lived here for a really long time. You've never seen my face unless you've seen me like in the downtown. And my husband and I, we got this letter, and it was like, oh, there's a special meeting, and we're like, oh, what's that about? But we've kind of learned after living here for 21 years that every time there's a special meeting, it usually costs us money. And so we decided that now is the time to get involved and start being a part of our community. Sorry, I'm really nervous. So I just think, I mean, like I said, I apologize, I'm really not educated on what is happening tonight. But I do think it just needs to go to a vote, because if you guys pass something again that raises everybody's tax bills again, I mean, yes, shame on all of us, but we're trusting you to make decisions for us. And I definitely will be a little bit more of an advocate out in the community to be like, you need to come to these meetings and learn about what's happening. And you'll probably see me a whole lot more. But I don't think the residents of Holly will be happy if you do a special assessment and give them a higher tax bill. We already pay really high taxes. So like Ms. Mattson said, put it to a vote in November, let the residents speak. Let us have a voice in where we prioritize our money. And I thought a lot of her ideas were really good. I mean, like I said, I'm not super educated in what's happening, but it's worth a look at. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Jan.
Jarrett Hopper, 309 Cogshell Street. I want to thank everyone for their time and just reviewing this packet, and also thanks for putting together this informational packet for us. That was one of the points that I wanted to make, is that having information like this is so important for us to really find out what's going on. So it's really great to have this. Just a couple comments, just reviewing the community survey results that I thought were pretty interesting. One is the age group that asked, what age group do we belong to? Most of the residents are younger residents coming into the village, really looking to bring up the community. Also, most of the folks own the property, 71, 72% what's here are their homes in there. Most of the folks have lived here around 10 years or so, although maybe 6 to 10 years. And what I find really interesting is like, as a taxpayer, just speaking personally and kind of what's looking here, if there was something that I was going to argue for, it would be this. I mean, this is taking care of our homes, this is taking care of our safety. Yes, I do agree that we need to vote and that, you know, taxes are an issue, but I would rather see my tax funds going for something like this that's protecting our residents and protecting our property versus something that is as important as it is some of the historical items that we have, because these are necessities. It says most of the folks don't work here in the community. If somebody's out working somewhere and your home needs to be saved, who's gonna save it? The folks that are getting this money to save what's going on. So, I mean, that's a big point. I think a big takeaway from this is, yes, we understand that there are tax assessments. No one likes to pay taxes. I for sure don't. But I would say with this, if there was something that I would ask the village residents to think about is if you want your taxes to go towards something, wouldn't it be to protect your loved ones and protect what you've worked so hard to achieve?
Thank you.
Madam President, over here.
Who is saying that?
That's me.
Hi, Sam.
So I just want a point of clarification for anyone that's wondering on council specifically probably. The survey that he's referring to is one that one of our firefighters did for a command class that Chief Watson, I believe, brought in and just provided the results so the community can see some of that. That was shared on the open discussion forum and stuff. The village didn't, that's not something the village did, that was an independent person.
Thank you for that clarification, and thank you, Chief Watson. Public comment?
Do we have a,
Public comment. Mr. Love? And just so most of the people in the back row, I'm kind of blinded by the sun, so if anyone else is raising your hand and I don't see it, please stand up. Thank you.
John Love, 200 North Saginaw. I have a problem with this. You got this meeting notice. I don't even know what the amount of budget is. Nobody seems to have do you have a copy of that that's available? That you pass out? You should have something like that here. That's kind of basic 101. So this is kind of amateur. Beyond that, I guess logic is kind of restraining the operation here. Duplication, we got the trailers, we got the school, have a policeman out there, it's not even part of the village. We had the water bill is illegal because you're charging a $25 tax regardless of how the usage is. And it's a violation of Bolt versus Lansing. But we couldn't have our village attorney handle that one. So we had to spend $250,000 on legal charges so that they can pay off the judge. That's how the thing's working. So I'd like to see at least some kind of a professional presentation that, you know, here's what the budget is, here's how much it is, how many employees are here, something that's a handout that tells you what's going on. You all know what's going on, but we don't. And I think it's amateur to not have that kind of basic information presented and available at a meeting. So let's try and move it up a notch. The other one is, I went over and talked to the North Oakland County Fire Authority about consolidating the fire departments. And they said, yeah, we could do that. We'd save a lot of money. But we don't want to get confused on that because we just send everybody the bill. So why don't you just act professionally, list something that's a handout that can understand how much it is, how many employees are, what the departments are, and what's being done to improve what's being spent. What do I have to do to find that out? I'm going to spend a week down here? You should be doing that as basic. This is some kind of amateur operation, and it's unfortunate because that's the basic kind of thing instead of this handout.
Thank you, Mr. Love. I see a hand back there.
Angela Wallace, 709 Baird Street. I just want to say thank you. You all are here, you're volunteers. You're working for your community. You're doing things. You're getting your hands dirty. You're doing your homework. You're looking at budgets. If you want to know where things are located, go to the website, fill out, or look at all of the information, everything that Mr. Lob just said. I don't know where any of this is. Look on the website. It's all there. It's all public. It's all out for every single person who is in this room, this village, and this community to look at. It's not up for you guys, I'm sorry, to be telling us. We have a responsibility as well to go and look for all of that information. So if you want to know where that information is, please look on the website. It is all there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody don't have a website, lady.
Go,
No back and forth, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
the library.
Thank you. In the back, please.
Hi, Stacy Ward, 107 Lake Street. I second Mr. Love in the question of, it's hard for us to talk to you about what's on the website if we can't hold it in front of us when we're here, and this gentleman doesn't have a website. I did look at the budget when I was at home, but I absolutely can't memorize it in order to come down here and talk to you all about it. But I guess one of my questions is, from just the very basics is, when you guys need a job done for the village, how many bids do you get? How many bids do you get? Do you get the cheapest bid? Do you get 3 or 4? Do you just get one? Do you give the job to your brother? Because it seems like you want a big chunk of money from us, but we don't even see where all the little dimes and the pennies go. I live here. I've been paying taxes. I'm like the other lady. I don't come to any meetings. I have no reason to. I assume that you all are here because you got voted in and you're getting a paycheck to do what you're doing. You wanted to be here. You asked for this. I never came here to come to these meetings because I was busy raising my family, cutting my grass, doing my job. But now I'm here and I want to know if you're being as tight with your budget as I have to be with mine. I cut my own grass. I paint my own nails. I get my hair cut once a year, maybe. Sometimes I go a year and a half. Why? Because that shit's expensive. So my question to you is, how many bids do you guys get? Can we cut corners somewhere? Anywhere? If the budget isn't here in front of us where we can talk to you about it, I can look on my computer, but I can't ask you any details. So that's basically my question. Can you cut corners somewhere? Because by threatening us, by taking away police and fire is very obnoxious. You can cut corners somewhere else. The street sweeper maybe goes less. Maybe we get a different trash company that's less. But you're asking us to sacrifice police and fire? That's threatening us. We're with fear. My house is going to burn down if I don't take $1,000 more worth of taxes. That's crap. That is crap. Look at the whole budget. If we're $1 million behind, then take it out of a little bit everywhere. It shouldn't come out of all of police and fire. Sign this, or your house is going to burn down. The cops aren't going to come. Because that's what I feel like. This whole thing is all cut and dried. You got my firemen sitting over there looking like, yep, better get it done, kids. That's all I have to say this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Hearing none. Seeing none. Okay, we will move on to the budget discussion. This is why we are here today, to talk about, now I want to remind everyone, we did have 2 budget meetings that were public. No one came. They were each 4 hours, 2 Saturdays back to back.
Lori was here.
That's true. Lori, I feel like your staff at this point, you're just as unpaid, you are as unpaid as council is, like even less. And we're revisiting it, and we're doing this as a courtesy, but it's obviously very important to the public to be informed. So we have all taken on this extra special meeting to tend to that desire and to be as transparent as possible. So I thank you all for coming and spending your time with us today as well. We've gotten a lot of ideas from the public. We've been reviewing them. We've been really hoping to find some kind of miracle where we could go, you know what, hell yeah, let's do that instead of cutting. Let's do that instead of a public assessment. I haven't seen anything like that yet. The ideas that have been brought to us, we've all reviewed before, but we're gonna sit here, we're gonna do it again one more time and see what we can come up with. Tim, will you please open this?
Absolutely, Madam President.
Thank you.
I also want to remind everyone that after this, immediately following, we're going to do a town hall where myself, the department heads, will be available. Like, I know it's frustrating for people to come up there and not get a response because that's just the way that council meetings are done. So after this, I've offered to sit down and sit as long as needed with the residents and answer questions back and forth. You know, Jan, if you have specific questions you want to ask, you want to learn how the budget process works and all these things, I will sit down with you and, you know, explain it. And if you want to talk about some of these plans with the group, we can talk about that. We can talk about, you know, you know, why, you know, we want to do capital improvements on, you know, our water and sewer. And that's the importance of the bonds, and that we're, you know, we can have these kinds of like more open discussions, and we want to be able to do that. And, you know, that the whole point that you were making, Stacy, about, you know, looking through the whole budget and trying to make these cuts. That's literally what the meeting is about tonight, is going through the budget line by line with the public. The budget documents have been available since mid-April for anyone that wants to do it online, that wants to view it online. Again, an area that we're trying to cut costs, if possible, is not making manual copies of every single document that's, you know, our packets are sometimes hundreds of pages long. I will briefly, if someone wants to play the home game at all, I'm going to switch my little view thing so that they can see the camera up there at home as well. And I'm going to just show you exactly where it's hung at our website. Let me go to the website first. Let me pull this up here. All right, so if you're on the website, so right now, if you want to see what any of our agendas are, go to the document library on the website, go to council agendas, go to the year we're at. And I understand that this might not be intuitive if you've never had to look at these things before, so that's why I want to do it. So we want to see what our meeting is today, right here. Well, we can download it or we can view it, whichever we'd like. I downloaded it, so I can pull it up. It has the agenda that you have in the back, but it also has the entire budget document that you can review and look at. I also, in this one, I also included just a MERS document that we're going to talk about a little bit, because it's a document that changed some of the discussion points we had about our unfunded pension liability. And so I wanted just to be able to provide. I'm trying to provide as much information, but if you go through, you can look through our past budget work sessions. It's all available on YouTube too. At the first budget work session, April 26th, I gave probably an hour-long class on municipal finance and what got us into this situation. And I would encourage everyone to watch it if you're concerned about where we're at. I'm not going to, I've repeated it about 3 times at council meetings, so I'm not going to do it again tonight because everyone would be pulling out their hairs. But I just wanted to be able to provide this. And for those that can't see it at home, I will pull up the Excel spreadsheet on the screen. I'll zoom in as much as possible. And so as we're going line by line, we can have the council can have an informed discussion with staff, the department heads about it. You can hear this. You can hear how we're, why we're in this situation. When we're talking about cuts, what does a cut really mean? Is it possible to make cuts that aren't affecting police and fire? When we are looking at a police budget that's $2 million, a fire budget that's $1 million, pension liability that's $1 million plus, and we have $4 million to spend. Well, that's $4 million right there. And people want roads, they want all these other things as well. And so that's what we're going to be looking at some tonight when we're going through it. This is council's opportunity to go. I mean, we've had 2 budget work sessions we probably spent between 6 and 8 hours discussing this already. We're going to go over it again so everyone can see it, and we've talked about what would extreme cuts look like. Nothing that we're saying tonight is guaranteed. It just, if we had to make extreme cuts, where could we possibly make them? And it's council giving advice to staff what your recommendations are. So let me see if I can pull up this spreadsheet. I'm going to switch back to my council view here. So just a little further information, so everyone is, because I know that not everyone I mean, I don't know why, but a lot of people haven't just looked at municipal budgets before. And so what we're going to be talking about tonight is the general fund. When we're talking about water, sewer, completely separate funds, and they are separate. When we talk about DDA, that's a separate fund. So there are different funds that are out there that we try not to commingle, or like there's legal restrictions on commingling funds and all this. And we can talk more about that in specific at the town hall afterwards if you want to know. We can have a discussion about that. But let me pull this up here for everyone. So, if I can. So the first portion that we're going to talk about, and so if you look at the full budget, I'm going to zoom in as much as I possibly can, so don't worry. So in municipal budgets, line 101 is your department. It's going to be your general fund. So when we're looking at general fund, we're talking about line 101. And so the first items that we're going to go over, so when you look at it, I'm just going to, so this is like our department numbers over here. It's the code that the clerk treasurer uses in order to identify funds and what's going. So we have some numbers up here for reference points. So you can say, hey, why did those numbers change? So, and we can talk those points. We have the 23-24 amended budget, the 24-25 amended budget, and then we have the 25-26 recommended budget. And there's been a couple changes since our last work session. Basically, and I have those highlighted, and we can talk those points as we get to them. But the first thing that we talk about is the revenue. Like, so where does our money come from? So the first thing is our real property tax on here. And so that's this amount here. When we're looking at how much, what's the taxable value of the village, and with our millage that we have, it's 11 point, so it just went down because of Headley every year. It started at 20 in 1982. When people say that we keep adjusting taxes, the village hasn't adjusted their millage rate since 1982. I don't think the township's raised theirs since 1935, right? George? Yeah, so they've been at 1 mil since 1935. So we haven't, when you're seeing a lot of these changes, they're county changes, they're parks, they're other things that are not necessarily related to the village. Again, we haven't adjusted our millage since 1982. Headley, has decreased it yearly since that point from 20 mils to 11.3254, I think is what we're at right now. And so, but the problem with that is that it doesn't adjust for inflation. And so, the buying power, so it decreases based on our property value increasing, but it doesn't increase for inflation. So the 1982 buying power of $1, it was, I think it's like $3.33. So $1 million in 1982 is the equivalent of $3.3 million now, essentially. So we're expected to be doing this based on 1982 era monetary value, essentially. So, and again, we can go into further details on this in the town hall. I'm just trying to give as much primer as I can. So we have our real property taxes. We have just different funds that we get our revenue in. This is not as much of, we can talk about these line by line if people want. If they have ideas for additional revenue, but I think we're really here to talk more about expenditures. So another big thing we have is our state revenue share, the statutory and the constitutional one, and so these are the numbers, and from the state, these have been adjusted to what the actual projections are that have been provided from the state. And from your last one, we've also removed any special assessment. As we're going through it, I just zeroed out the special assessment, so we can go, if we go to the very bottom of this document, when we're looking at our bottom line, and we can make updates live as we're doing this, kind of see where we're sitting as we take things out, and what those would be. We'll go to the very bottom of our document, and this is where our deficit is at right now, $600,000 approximately. And the reason it's less than we even talked before, and I kind of gave you a primer on this when I talked about the MERS stuff, the staff has worked with MERS, and we've been able to reduce our payments to our unfunded pension liability from $1,090,000 a year to about $800,000. But this also is not, this is going to incrementally increase throughout the years, but it also is not going to affect the year that we pay off. The document you see at the end of the thing kind of covers those things for MERS. I won't go into so many details, but you'll see that there's been a $200,000 decrease in the pension liability, which just for ease of reference, I put $100,000 in police, $100,000 in clerks. That's not where it's actually going to end up, but it's just so you can kind of see where those amounts are reduced out of there, so you don't have to worry about that. And I also added some additional costs that we've gotten now when we understand where our vehicle insurance is, our medical insurance, because all of those rates have increased as well. And so we've added some additional costs, which I believe I've highlighted in this document too as we go through it. So let's go back up to, all right, so revenue. Did any council members have any questions on revenue before we move on to our different lines? So revenue, we're looking at $3 million, almost $4 million right there. Again, these are just estimates.
Are you talking about revenue including from like trailer parks, marijuana tax?
Any of the revenue lines, any of these?
Because,
Everything listed on the first 2 pages.
okay, well, I just want to make, because the same number for our real property taxes from last year to this year is the same.
Yeah.
And then trailer park fees goes down $4,300.
Okay.
Marijuana tax is the same, penalties are the same. Everything's going down. And I just don't understand how that's possible.
Well, we're trying to give you, because we're looking at what the year end, like when we're doing the reconciliation of the previous budget, we are looking at what the actual numbers were. The previous budget, budgets from past years were based on those numbers. And we're looking at, all right, this is the realistic numbers about the economy we're currently living in. And Lisa, you can chime in if you want. We're looking at the realistic numbers and what we're expecting to get. State revenue share might go down because one of the things, so when we talk about state revenue share, that's talking about the 6% sales tax you get. All right, out of the 6% sales tax, 15% of that is used by the state to provide 4% of that to municipalities. Well, we get less of that money now because the state has to balance their budget too, and they're facing these same issues. So they're taking that money from municipalities and reducing our state revenue share across the board for municipalities. And again, I can talk more specifics on those when we get to the town hall portion. But I can't specifically talk to trailer park fees, and I can reference, to the departments that have provided those numbers. But I'm just saying that that's the realistic numbers we're looking at based on projections from.
My main thing is really just the real property taxes are staying the same.
Okay, yeah, and so that was just I updated this number because we had previously had it at 1,896,000 or something on the previous document, and it's because we were doing that at the previous Headley amount, which was 11.5126 or something like that. And so based on the information we got, we found out what our new millage rate would be, which is 11.32, whatever. And so I just adjusted these numbers to show that that's the amount that we project. Again, this is just a projection. It's going to be based on our taxable value divided by 1,000 times whatever our millage will be. And that's how that number is derived.
Council, any other questions on revenue?
So I'm sorry, if you have questions, we'll do that at the end. We're going to do town hall style, but yeah. So
For the other revenue, for the transfers from fund balance, do we have any fund balance that can be transferred over to make up any of the difference?
No, there's no fund balance. We've been working at a deficit in fund balance, so there's nothing in fund balance to transfer to. So
everyone is tracking. So the village has been running at a deficit essentially since 2017, and at a deficit of 400,000, 500,000, eating away at that amount. If you go again, I can teach you guys how to fish a little bit, and we can go to the website and I can show you where you can see some of this information, or like how you can find out some of it. But, well, if you go to, let me see if I can pull it up. I don't want to make promises and not be able to do it. Because I saw a lot of oohs and ahs when I said that. All right, so, set later. All right, so we go to Holly Village. We can just go to our website, go down to, and you can do this for any municipality that actually participates in this program, but, where is it at? done. Here we are. So just to give you an example, if you look at Munitrix, all right, so here is the fund balance history of Holly, all right? You'll see it's going up, 2017. Then 2017 happens, and it goes down, all right? And you get, oh, I'm sorry, you can see the years here. 2020, what happens 2020? We have a pandemic, yeah, and so federal funding comes in. Federal funding comes in and gives us this false look at, we're getting extra revenue from the federal government. If we did not have the pandemic, this would have happened like 2022. We would have been down here. So this is something that has been, council, this was brought to council, the different council in 2020. This was briefed to them. They chose not to act. This is a brand new council. This is a brand new administration. And so we are hosting town halls. We're letting everyone know this is what we've inherited. And this is, the actions that we're trying to make. We started in January. We presented all of this to the council as soon as we found out about it. And we've been working on it since April. The reason that we're talking about special assessments and all that, why we're looking at this rather than a vote, is because in order to get the money in to finance our village and to get our budget at a balanced budget, which we're legally obligated to do, we have to get everything in to the state by June 20th. And so that's the reason that we are in this timeline crunch in order to balance a budget. And so when we talk about doing a vote of the people, that's the reason we can't do it. And so again, even if we would have found out about this on the first day, there's no way that we would have had time to do a special election, all of these things, for us, for the administration. All right, so going back to that. So, okay. So where were we?
Asking council if council had any further questions about revenue.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Can you please explain too, because it's been put out there that our revenues have increased every year, and so somehow we must be flush with cash. Can we do a basic accounting in that just because revenues increase does not mean that expenses do not also increase?
I mean, yeah, you just said it. Like, expenses increase every single year. Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, and again, expenses increase just like inflation. I mean, everybody understands that, utilities go up, we pay gas, we pay electric, just like everybody else. Health insurance, that goes up 19% every year. Life insurance goes up, and car insurance, the liability insurance on the building, all these things go up. And we don't have any, we do bids, somebody had asked if we go out there and do bids, we get comparison bids on all this stuff. And so we look at it and we take into consideration. But even at that, it's still an increase. There's nothing that comes in at a lower rate, there's nothing that comes in at a, status quo. Everything's an increase. It's inflation.
And I don't want to bury the lead on this too. I know people think we're threatening the fire and police, and they'll talk about this when we get to town hall. They'll talk about it at the meetings on the 16th, 17th. Our police, our fire are some of the lowest paid. They're the lowest paid in Oakland County. They're some of the lowest paid in the state. And Oakland County is like one of the highest paid for it. So our officers, I don't know the median income, but Chief, what is a new officer expected to make here? New officer.
New officer coming out makes about $24 an hour to start. It's a pay bump up to $30 an hour, so they're going to top out at about $67,000, and the average department right now is hiring at 95.
So to ask them to, before we even get into it, we're looking at our police things. So we're also in contract negotiations with our police, with our Teamsters. That all of the unions have kind of agreed that we said, hey, we're going to try to put in here a 3% cost of living increase, which doesn't even cover cost of living. They really wanted like 25% to get them on par with other communities. But they agreed, or for the most part, they've agreed. We haven't come to conclusion, I think, because we don't have the funds to do it yet. And we're trying to finalize this. But they've said, hey, we trust administration. We trust what you guys are doing. We believe in it, so we will extend for the contract for a year at a 3% increase if we can pass it through council, if we can get the money to do it. So when you see increases in wages and such, that's why you're seeing increases, because it's a representative of a 3% increase for the different departments, which we're already obligated through other contracts to do for some, like for fire, who are on a contract till 2027. So,
Just a follow-up question too, in terms of revenue and just the budget being at a deficit. What is the consequences if we tried to pass this budget with a deficit? What would happen?
so,
Oh, I already know the answer.
yeah. What's that?
He was trying to answer me, and I said, I already know the answer.
All right,
but
well,
I think some
so-
other people ought to know the answer of what
Yeah.
happens if we try to pass a budget.
So, yeah.
And why necessarily we cannot wait for November for a ballot box or for a year later.
It's a loaded question because legally we have to pass a balanced budget. So it's a legal requirement for us to pass a balanced budget. Whether it's, we're saying we're going into a deficit and using fund balance, which we don't have to do. So so at what point, so when you look at that, if you go back to that, that slide, that thing that I showed with the, it going down, there's a trigger warning at the state. When you get to a certain point, the state gets alerted that, hey, your fund balance is this low, start looking at their budget, when does the state need to intervene? And so we can solve this, and in my opinion, and you know, and again, I'd love to sit and talk a little more strategy and stuff after this with individuals, and we're going to talk a lot more about that going forward. But I'm sorry, I kind of lost where I was going on this, but repeat your
Passing
question.
a balance and deficit.
Okay, yes, so so the state could intervene, it would take a 10-year period probably for us to right the ship if it was with the state 15, 20, anyone that sat through one of these, if you were part of Flint's, when the state came in and things like that, you know how long it takes to recover from that. And they come in slashing. When we're talking things like mill pond, we'll have no control over it. When we're talking about what we're cutting, police, fire, all of these things, we will have no control over it. That's just, I mean, Jane's been doing the city management thing for a long time. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, we lose control. If we do this responsibly and we do it now, we can right the ship in a year or 2 years. I've said it to a lot of people, when we talk about doing a special assessment, I've been pushing hard for it because I feel like that's the answer that can get us through right now. As hard as I'm working for it, watch me. I'm going to work just as hard to get us out of this, take the special assessment away, lower taxes for everyone across the board, because we have to do this now to have an immediate response in order to pass a budget, but we need to look strategically ahead. How are we lowering taxes for everyone? And, you know, someone mentioned cityhood. That's one of the options that we talked about looking at. And that's one of the things that we'll probably speak about a lot more, maybe like come July and August as we're moving forward. Like, what is that process? What does it look like? Why is it beneficial? And again, at the town hall afterwards, if people want to ask specific questions on that, I'd love to have a conversation. I've had conversations with several people in this room about this already.
Council, any further questions on revenue? Daniel?
I have one more, just a curiosity about the school liaison officer, and this is probably directed more towards Chief. Is the school paying for the resource officer, or are we paying a portion of it?
Sorry.
That's
I'm
a
really
low
hard
seat
to-
there.
I'm hard to get into these chairs. There we go. Good question. So our school resource officers, we have 2 full-time school resource officers, one of which now is vacant, and one what we call seasonal. They work through the school year, but they're not on, they don't get benefits, they only get the pay. There's no benefits, and when the school year's over, they leave. So the school district, we've negotiated contracts with them, we're about to renegotiate next year. They pay 65% of the officer's wages, and that's the total package. So that's an excellent benefit. We look at that as a win-win, right? We're in the schools, we're working with our kids. They're paying 65% of that. Now, those officers, the 2 full-time officers, one's assigned to a day shift and one's assigned to a midnight. So when they're not in the schools during the summer months, they rotate back into their respective shifts. And the part-time officer or the seasonal officer just is off to enjoy summer at no pay until they come back. So that's our current status. They also pay, the schools pay some towards their uniforms, their ballistic vests, protection, and then also $20 a day for vehicles. And in our fleet, we move our older vehicles down for our SROs because they're not patrol vehicle, they're not, banging up on the roads. So they're paying basically the maintenance, fuel, tires, oil changes, and the maintenance on the vehicles.
Thank you, Terry. Council, any further questions on revenue? Jim?
Thank you, Madam President. Had a citizen reach out to me talking about the possibility of redistricting the DDA. Now, we mentioned briefly about that. Is that something feasible, or is that?
So it is something that would not benefit us immediately. I mean, even if we were to redistrict, like, there's a lot of concerns with, considerations with redistricting the DDA. But what that does immediately, and we talked about this last night at the DDA meeting, is that, first of all, so the way that DDAs are funded is tax increment financing, and the number gets frozen of, the amount that they're getting gets frozen based on the year that it was approved. It went from, I think it was 1984 to 2020, and the last time it was frozen was at 2020. If we were to redistrict, that goes back to zero for them and also for us. So we wouldn't get anything in the first year to redistrict. Yes, over time, we would get more money back, but what that is it's just because they're freezing the taxable value, giving us the increase of it. But the other benefit of the DDA is that the money that's going to the county, all like these other things, when I showed the dollar in the budget work session, a lot of that is going back. So it's more money that's staying in the community that otherwise would go out to the county and other areas. So we would be losing out on that extra benefit as well. And so that's a consideration there. Again, we would have to run the numbers to look at exactly what that would look like, but that's a long-term thing that might benefit, but it's also at the detriment of the DDA. And so the question council would have to ask is, do they think that the DDA is an effective tool within our community and worth that amount of money? And so that's just the decision that would have to be made there. So.
Thank you. So keeping with the DDA, I had looked and done some research on my own, and other municipalities will actually do cost share. So for instance, it's pretty restricted how you can actually use the DDA money, it has to be in the district. So for instance, street sweeping along Saginaw, is that something that has been explored before, or?
So yeah, so we've had initial conversations. So I have not had as many conversations with the DDA as I would like on some of these things, because, we've been working on a lot of other stuff, but that's something that we need to have further discussion with. We've been waiting for a new director to come in to be able to have this kind of partnership where we're hammering out a lot of these details. But yes, that can happen. Some things that have been used in other DDAs, code enforcement, code enforcement money whenever they're in the area. They have done that, street sweeping, utilities, which they're already paying some of. They're doing some cost shares of these items within their budget. They do pay some administrative costs. But I think that moving forward, and just based on the meeting that we had last night with the DDA, I think that the village needs to probably clarify a lot of those relationships because they want specific invoices, and we want to be honest with them about, hey, this is exactly where it's coming from. You're using office space, well, let's look at what our square footage is and how much that equates to, and actually do real numbers for them and have a contract that's approved by council with them that they're paying out of their funds in order to do some of this cost recovery on those items. They are paying some already. I don't want it to act like we're not pulling anything from the DDA budget, because we are. But whether it's representative of actual costs, it's just been a fixed number in the past, not actually defined out as much as I would like to do with the new DDA director.
Thank you. Last one. A speaker mentioned borrowing money from our enterprise fund. Is that something that is possible to do? At that scale?
Municipalities, I don't know about at that scale. Municipalities have done it before. Obviously, what that does is it's not a long-term solution that creates an additional liability that we have to pay on. Just like I know people in the past have talked about bonding out this building. Again, then we are creating additional liability and losing assets that we possibly have. And the water and sewer money, our infrastructure is starting to fail there too. And so for future capital improvements, we want to have that money available if a water main breaks, or if we need, if one of our pump stations go down. And Brian probably can talk a lot more about that when we get to his expenditure line, like what, some of those line items maybe that are maybe represented in water and sewer that we won't be talking about tonight, but where those needs might be. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to say about that? Immediately? Sorry to put you on the spot. seat with the department heads, so we can go over that stuff.
Yeah, real quick, I mean, the village is small, but the village is also built on a swamp. So most sewer systems are gravity fed. Ours has 13 lift stations and 2 square miles. I'll use Milford, they're similar in size to us, they have 3 lift stations in their 2 square miles, roughly 2 square miles. We have 3 water towers, they have 1. So you can't compare apples to apples when you look at certain things. You have to consider the assets that are there. We have infrastructure that's pushing 80 years old. We have original combined sewer system that is used for sanitary sewer right now on North Street that is oversized, and it's 80-year-old clay crock that we had to do emergency repair a couple years ago. That was a $40,000 fix, and it was not that large of a fix. So when you look at those things, having, you know, people have talked about, well, you've got $5–10 million in fund balance. You get a major expense, and that happens, or major accident, you're gonna have a major expense. And I don't think you're gonna get a contractor that's gonna come in here and say, do the repair and wait a year as we bond this out to get paid for their repair. So you gotta have that money on hand to be able to pay them.
Thank you, Brian. Council, any further questions on revenue? Moving on, Tim?
So our first item is our 101 line, which is village council. And the wages that are set by our charter, and so that's how much is paid out annually to every village council member, like in total, that's the amount that is paid out. Includes, you know, FICA, some of these items have already been removed. Training is, we've removed training from a lot of these budgets. Also, just a note, because we're getting the expenses now, and the council has this on their desk as well. Based on some of the stuff that staff has talked with other departments about, with MERS, I talked about the pension liability, we were able to reduce it. So originally, we were talking about doing a 5.5 mil special assessment, but based on some of the work that Lisa has done, that staff has done, we're now looking to propose 4 mils. So we've reduced that by, 1.5 mils, just based on the work we've already done, so.
Thank you, staff.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So, and we're looking at what other opportunities we are. And if people see, things in here, and afterwards they want to talk to me about, I'm more than willing to have further discussion. So, does anyone have any question on the village council line?
I just want to specify, Tim, that 6,900 is for all of the council members.
It's
not-
6,300.
I see 16, well, no, I'm talking about the whole total village
Oh, yeah.
council, total
Oh,
for the department is
okay.
6947. That's for all of us up here, not just one of us, it's all of us up here.
Yeah. When is
So
the
divide
last,
that by,
when's the last time village council got a raise?
I don't know, I don't even know when we
Ever?
get paid.
I could look in the charter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look in the charter when it was last amended.
I don't even know when we
off the
get
top of my
paid.
head.
Once a year, we get paid $900 each, and it
I
comes
know,
to.
I don't know when it comes
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
That's
and
in
that's really to
November.
cover the expenses of, like the traveling back and forth for all the meetings you have to do, all of those things.
No, this doesn't pay for my babysitter, but
Yeah.
it's a nice thought. It's a nice
Yeah.
thought. That's not why we're here, obviously.
No, not at all.
So, council, any questions on council or on manager?
Oh, we haven't done manager yet, so,
Oh, sorry, I thought you.
so, nope, so on
Council,
the,
any further questions on council? Okay, moving on, Tim.
on the manager line, so this is representative of my area, I guess. This doesn't tell the accurate story because my wages are actually broke down, some of our wages from our departments, it's in the full budget document, if you look, are broken down by departments. So 40% of my wages come out of the village manager line, 10% comes out of the building line, 25% comes out of water, 25% comes out of sewer. And so that's just how my wages are broken down, just for full transparency of everyone. Again, all of this information is available online for anyone to see in our budget documents. And so this covers my wages, and a lot of this is contractual. In fact, some of it has been even removed. Like I've, reduced, so like memberships and training, this doesn't even cover the stuff that I'm contractually, I can say I'm obligated to have based on my contract, but I understand the situation we're in, and so that's why, I'm not going to the ICMA events, I'm not going to the MML events, You know, I'm not even updating I'm paying for like my ICMA membership, which is like $1,000 out of my own pocket. Even though I'm like, but per our contract, I'm allowed to claim it.
So I see that you're pre-approved to spend some money on those things, but you're saying that you're not traveling to help us save money right now.
Yeah, I'm not planning on doing any of those things. So like the travel line zeroed out and all of those things.
Yeah.
Again, any questions on my
Yes,
line?
what's, so what would you say, how does your wage compare to other village managers? Tim?
I would be, well, in Oakland County, one of the lowest, by far. Across the state, I would say it's mid-range, mid to low range of what the states are. It depends on experience and a lot of these things, but they get up to like 200,000, 193, I think is, but so it's in the realm.
This council spent a lot of hours and did a lot of work, and this village paid a lot of money to get quality applicants, but one of the bonuses that we had to attract managers, offering the lower wage that we do, is that they get a 4-day work week, 10-hour days, so they get their 3-day weekends. So that's something that's kind of attractive to get talented village managers like Tim.
I'm still waiting to get that. So,
That's the theory.
yeah, it's just, even though I don't have, just so everyone knows too, just if you're ever interested, like Lisa and I don't necessarily have to do time cards per se, but I've been filling out my time cards. And so I would probably average in, an 80-hour period that you're supposed to, I probably average 120 hours. So, of work. I'm here for most evenings for meetings till 7, 8 at night, and most Fridays and weekends, so.
And you do answer emails at night. 10 o'clock at night, I sent an email up and got a response. So.
Any further questions on Village Manager Wage Council?
One more.
Jim.
So,
Just wrong.
I've talked to a couple individuals, and they've indicated it's permissible that, so you do get paid out of the enterprise fund, some of them.
Can you speak in the mic, Jim? I can't hear you.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I'm in the back here. So, you do get paid out of the enterprise fund. Now, we've been doing a lot of meetings and stuff about water and everything else. So it's possible you could raise it and lower it depending on if we're working on something.
Yes, so it should be, the way that it's, the idea of it is that it should be representative of how much time that you're spending on each of these items. But they recognize that I can't I do talk about water quite a bit, water and sewer, but it's hard for me to be like, all right, spent an hour there talking about, the sewer, or, we're doing, water sewer studies, this is 6 hours. But, so that's just approximate based on historic,
And you feel it's pretty accurate? Or under or over?
I think it's pretty accurate. I think it's pretty accurate, but in totality, probably pretty accurate. On a day-to-day basis, there's no way to really tell.
Thank you. Council, Village Manager. Next, please, Tim.
All right, the next one is Parks and Recs line. Brian, if you want to come up here for this one. All right. So, I can probably talk some of the higher bullet points on this if we want. So when we talk about, one of our parks commissioners is leaving. Contractual, when we look at 30,000 there, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is for, it's for our, the mowing services that we contract out and the porta-johns that are, the porta-johns that we have out.
It's getting difficult to hear the presentation, please. Thank you.
The porta-johns that we have in the different parks and such. So that's like the contractual expenses. Again, they go up every year. We could pull up and look at what has been expensed previously. And then project cost, Brian, do you remember what this is representative of, this 25,000? Or?
Yeah, it was repairs to the gazebo at Ganshaw Park, repairs to the pedestrian bridge at Waterworks. In the past, we've added gazebos at Waterworks or pavilions, some park equipment. We replaced the tot lot with ARPA funds at the Lakeside Park, and there was concern by citizens and parks commissioners that we didn't have enough for toddlers, so we were looking at some smaller park equipment at Lakeside Park to replace what was removed. And those are, and every year, the Parks Commission comes up with a list of projects, and then staff gets those costs. And if you notice, and there's only part-time wages in there, and that's seasonal help that we use to do Lakeside Park, because our contractor, we couldn't get anybody to bid that out, or bid on it when we bid that out, due to the size of it.
What work do they do there?
They cut, mow and trim, they maintain the pavilions, and that's only part-time wages. So when seasonals leave for the year, that stuff doesn't stop. We still use full-time staff to maintain our parks and take care of any graffiti, maintain the bathrooms, winterize them, open them up in the spring before those people even start, so.
What happens if we get rid of porta-johns? Brian?
Lakeside Park has bathrooms that are seasonal. There's no heat in those buildings, so there would be bathrooms there during warmer weather. None of our other parks have restrooms, so we could end up with people using the
Shit
public
hitting the fan?
areas. Yeah, public areas to do their business.
Okay, and what happens if we get rid of projects for the upcoming years for a little while, just to cut costs?
For the mowing and trimming, I mean, we do have an obnoxious weed ordinance that we're still responsible. We wrote, we enforce that, so we enforce it ourselves. So the parks would get cut probably about every 3 weeks before
That's
they.
contractual, you're asking about project costs.
Oh, project costs?
Yeah.
Nothing would get done at any of the parks. We wouldn't be able to upgrade any of the existing structures, we wouldn't be able to add anything to the parks.
Big safety concerns.
So safety concerns, and we would
Yeah,
lose
picnic
the,
tables would be in disrepair, they wouldn't get painted annually, boards wouldn't get replaced, those kind of things.
do you see anything, in your opinion, that we can cut from parks?
I'm open to suggestions. If people don't want to see stuff new at the parks or fixed for the next couple of years, I mean, we're looking at $600,000. You take $25,000 out of that, you're.
Would you like me to, just as we go through?
And this is where things are gonna get tough, because these aren't necessarily things that I support doing. This is
Right.
academically speaking, looking at what money can we save where, which pennies can we pinch. So especially talking to the department heads about your particular areas of expertise coming up, the chief of police, the chief of fire, and the water enterprise. Nobody's gonna support, not supporting those projects, but we have to talk about it. So I don't wanna demoralize the staff. We support you guys. This is just a conversation we have to have for the public, because a lot of misinformation has been spreading that we have all these bells and whistles. So a lot of this is just about educating the public. So,
And just to give you a thought on project costs, we paid about $165,000 for the play structure at Lakeside Park. So if you look, we're budgeting $25,000. Park equipment, it doesn't go far for park equipment. A garbage can that we buy is $600. A park bench is $800. We buy the frames and buy the local hardware or the lumber at Curtains and build them ourselves.
How much was the water fountain at Lakeside?
The water fountain
Just
at
that water
Lakeside was
fountain.
about $3,500. And that was for a basic drinking fountain. If you add any kind of accessories to it or any kind of features to it, you're $5,000, $8,000 for a drinking fountain. And that's not including labor, that's not including if there's any concrete needed once it's installed, because we have to make all these things ADA compliant.
I do have a question too. Part of the Parks Fund does come from money that was given to us through marijuana tax or from Loom and the different ones, correct? So
Yeah.
part of that is also money that was given to us. It's earmarked by those people to spend here.
Correct.
$10,000. It's.
We have an additional 7, correct, for,
We had
That was
an
a one-
additional
that was a
$7,000 last
Correct.
year for playground
Yeah,
equipment.
that was a one-time.
And that's a pledge. So that's something that they pledge to give, and that we say, this is where we plan to use it. So it could be reutilized per the agreements, but ideally, we would keep it with it where we decide that we said we were going to do it.
okay.
As the parks liaison, and like you said, we've got to make cuts. We did come in under budget last year, so if we want to take 10K off of this, I mean, I understand it. If we have to make cuts, we have to make cuts.
I'm going to say, as we get through this, we're going to see that the cuts have to be drastic. So maybe academically, we just we zero out contractual, because just understand we're going to be removing porta-johns, because like Brian said, it's just, and then for project costs, we take everything down but the 10,000 that is pledged, so that we can just start getting an idea of what it's going to look like when we make some of these cuts. Because this is an area where this might seem actually more obvious than some of the other areas we might talk about.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna, for the sake of the argument, I'm gonna just do this, and I'm gonna add just the 10,000 that's obligated here.
Yeah, let's start a tally. It's gonna track that,
Yeah.
perfect.
And actually I'll highlight
So now
those
we have no porta-johns.
And 5 every 3 weeks from home.
And what kind of graffiti will we not be able to maintain? What is the usual graffiti that we have to correct, Mr. Clausen?
Male genitalia. We have a lot of boys and they know how to draw, so.
I know I've seen at least 10 swastikas over the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, we've had some stickers that were put on park waste receptacles. We've had, you know, any kind of swear word you can think of, profanity, that kind of stuff.
We wouldn't know, we don't swear.
Yeah.
I think we get the point. Council, any further questions about parks?
Well, you wiped out my question. It was gonna be about the ADA compliancy, about the porta-johns. Are they ADA compliant?
Yes,
And-
we do have ADA compliant porta-johns at several of our parks.
No, all of the parks though.
Not all the areas, but at our major parks, we have ADA compliant.
Every one I thought, I heard we're supposed to be 80, so by wiping them out, good.
Oh, we can address that at a different meeting.
No, I'm just saying, it's like, that's why I said you wiped out my question. I agree with you though, it's not,
Council, any further question on parks?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I gotta add some of these formulas while we're talking to you.
Okay.
Because apparently it's not, this version they have.
Insert your formula.
You can see me doing this real time, see if I mess it up.
I'll speak slower. Council, any
is.
further question on parks?
We can't cut, I mean, the insurance is what we gotta have is probably the bare minimum, right?
Could just close the parks and we don't have to have insurance, do we?
Until someone breaks into them.
What would it look like if we closed the parks?
Not ideal.
I'd rather
Mr.
close the
Clausen.
parks and shut down the fire
Just
department.
remove our liability. And we'd have to put fences up, we'd have to do all that for cost. We'd have to cost associated.
We'd have to secure against vandalism and use.
Just have some drunk driver just drive through and take them out and then write them a ticket.
Any other
That
questions?
might increase the crime rate.
Yeah, it's an attractive nuisance, as they would say. It's something, so people aren't able to use it. It just gives them somewhere, there are several structures at all our parks. We have pavilions and
And we'd have to build
gazebos.
costly fences.
Yes,
So it just doesn't sound like that's going to save us any money anyways.
no.
All right. Tim, are you caught up on your formula?
Yep, on that one, I'm gonna check them as we go.
Okay.
I'll check this one right here, just to see if it has, yep, this one's good.
All right, do you have cemetery up?
I do have some material.
All right, council, questions on cemetery?
I have a question on cemetery. What if we close the cemetery? What if we stop burying people at Lakeside Park and we only mow?
I don't know if we can legally close it for people to go there, but as far as people being interred there, is that the question?
Yes.
Well, they've paid for plots, so they legally own that piece of property.
So the people who already own it, you would still need workers to be able to
Yes,
open?
I mean, we could do it where they could only be buried during normal working hours. There wouldn't be any
Okay.
overtime for burials. That people that we do on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, they would only be able to be buried Monday through Thursday from 7 to 4.
Okay.
So there would be no overtime. If you notice that there is no wages there for full-time employees, it's only part-time employees. So a lot of that comes out of DPW wages if they work there. That part-time wages is for seasonals when we mow and trim, and if you follow social media, we do get complaints every year around Memorial Day, especially if the weather doesn't cooperate, because it's hard to trim wet grass. The cemetery is 37 acres with about 3,000 headstones. So we start on Monday and wrap up on Thursday and start all over again on Monday during the growing season.
Do we continue to sell plots there?
Yes.
Tim, you mentioned during our other budget workshops that the cemetery cost can be its own millage. Can you
Yeah.
explain that for the public and how that works?
So there's, I'd have to remember which public act that's under. I think it's 512, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look at it. But there's also ways that council can approve a cemetery millage or assessment or millage up to, I can't remember exactly how much it is.
Well,
It's
less
1
than
mil?
what we have.
It's up to 1 mil,
It
I
has a
guess.
cap.
But it has to be, again, identified for that particular one. So it wouldn't, like, the 1 mil wouldn't even cover, I mean, it would cover more than the cost, so it would be less than a mil that you would
Right,
do.
so in other words, it'd be an additional cost on taxpayers, but it would free up the general fund millage from that.
Yes, but to taxpayers, they wouldn't notice the difference.
Yeah, if you look at the bottom line budget, that budget is about $35,000 a year. So, once again, we're looking at about 2%, 3% of the deficit. And there's a lot of history in the cemetery, there's a lot of lifelong family members and people still in the community that visit on a regular basis. So, we get as much visitation probably in the cemetery during nicer weather, even during the winter, than we do some of our parks.
And legally closing it wasn't an option.
No, because people they have,
Right.
they own that land, so we can't restrict them from,
Yeah, not to be morbid, this is just one of those public education
Yes.
moments.
yep.
Hey, Brian, what is the $5,200 for utilities?
We have 2 buildings up there. We have a pole barn where we store equipment and supplies, and then we have a small garage up front. We also have a
caretaker building?
Well, we have a building they can do services in, and so that has electricity and heat. We charge for that, but we still have to maintain that. We spent about $5,000 to $8,000 a couple years ago re-siding that, fixing the fascia and the soffit on it, so.
Each individual line is so low.
Yeah.
What are the projects? Project costs are at $5,000.
The cemetery is fenced in except in the front where we come in from Lakeside Park. So that fence has to be maintained. There's several mausoleums. Like I said, there's 3 buildings on that have to be maintained. We look at some of the older foundations where family members aren't around, our old sandstone foundations. So we try to replace those so that we don't have headstones and monuments sinking. In the past, we repaired the brick wall that was there and the main drive that was going in, and did repairs around that. We maintained flags at the cemetery, so.
While I can entertain the idea of getting rid of porta-johns and future projects at the parks, I cannot entertain any ideas about removing any of these costs from the cemetery. Council, does anyone disagree about any line?
I am in agreement.
Any further questions on cemetery? Let's move on, please.
So, all right, so we're on to attorney. And I would encourage residents to also look at other communities that are our size and what they do. Like, these budgets that we're working on for the things that we're currently proposing are skeleton. Like, they are, I mean, as you're hearing the things we're talking about, like, there would be most of these other departments from many other municipalities would have another 0 behind it. So.
Well, and another piece of this is, our deficit this year was what, 6 something? That's this year, but we're also gonna be short 700 something next year, 700 something next year. So if we were to, put a loan against this building, okay, that gets us through 1 year, but what about next year? And now we're gonna owe interest on this as well. So we are looking at something that's sustainable for the future here. So now, someone earlier had mentioned how many bids do we solicit for services, and I think typically it's 3, as long as there's that many. Sometimes there's a specialized service where there's only like
Yeah, and so.
one kind of group available for that particular work, but typically 3.
Yeah, it's part of our purchasing policy. I think that's
Yeah.
chapter 30 in the charter. But we can, I was gonna actually talk about that in the town hall, if anyone wants to go into, so I can't speak of how it was done in the past, how bids that were done in the past.
But
I
what
can't
about
say.
attorneys? When's the last time that we solicited other ones?
What's that?
When is the last time that the village solicited attorneys?
Attorneys, so that is up to village, I don't know the answer, that's up to village council, because that's a village council appointed position. So I can't even, I'm not, for that position and the clerk, I'm not allowed to actually
So
provide any kind of.
these 2 lines are a little different. It's not like the other lines where we're talking about different projects. Your professional and labor relations services, they're gonna be what they're gonna be based on that attorney. So the difference here is we're gonna be looking at, do we keep Gildner, or do we look at hiring on with a different attorney? So is that something that the council would want to entertain?
These can be, he doesn't have a fixed cost. I mean, It's hourly rates, like.
Right, so it's just gonna be what it's gonna
Yeah.
be. Yeah, so the only way that those numbers could change is if we went with a different attorney. Doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna be cheaper. So whether you're talking about, his competence, as some people have called into question, or his cost, for either reason, is soliciting different attorneys something that the council is interested in pursuing?
I am.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Okay, let's get that on, a future agenda, please.
I would also like to point out for the cost for the attorneys, for recommended budget of 21,000. I actually have the actuals from other years, like in 2023, we spent about 22,000, and 24 we spent about 19,000. So it is right about that cost.
Any further questions on attorneys, counsel?
Can we lower the rates by, and are we currently trying to help lower the rates by not having the attorney at every meeting, like has been kind of standard practice?
So, I mean, he's not here tonight, obviously. So, for all, I would have to read through the charter, how it's written. I believe that he is supposed to attend every, like, regular council meeting unless excused by the council. However, don't quote me on that. I'll have to read over the charter to review that, that portion of the charter. There are many other municipalities that I've worked for and that the attorney's only there when there's items up for discussion that, council has asked the attorney to be present for. So that could be, again, I'd have to look at how the charter's written on that.
Yeah, and I know that we have a lot of things coming up that are a lot of work for you and Lisa, so I don't know that asking you to have that soliciting new attorneys and reviewing the charter by next month is really feasible. But when do you think maybe August or September agenda might be appropriate to have all of that reviewed and on there?
Again, I'm gonna have to look at the charter, and I'm gonna have to, probably reach out to someone that's done this particular thing before, because, I've seen it, but I haven't been, as familiar. So I wouldn't want to even hazard a guess with everything else going on. And again, this is not gonna be a quick solution. And having seen other attorney costs for, communities, this is one of the lowest I've ever seen, and he does a lot of work for us. So,
Thank you for that.
yeah.
Okay, that is something, council, by your request, that we will look at within this year. I imagine we'll at least have some feedback.
I know one person that's looked at municipal attorneys in the past, and that is Mr. Colas. He might be a good resource to contact for the process of finding them.
May I ask one question?
No. I'm kidding, go ahead. Okay, he's good. Moving on to,
So what I will say is, what I will do is I'm gonna add this as an agenda item, because we can't really add new agenda items here because we haven't, discussed it. So this isn't my formal approval to do it. What I'm gonna add is the next agenda for you guys to ask staff to do this.
Okay,
So that it's
perfect.
like official.
That part of the process.
Yeah, part of the process, that you're directing staff in order to do this.
okay,
You have that?
moving on to building fund.
I do, yes, I do.
All right. Building fund, all right?
Yes. Council, questions about building fund?
Again, this is just a small amount, but operating supplies going from 1,000 to 3,500.
So those are updates to our code books. So right now, our code books 2015 was the last time we updated them. And so we are required to have the code books updated at certain intervals. Chief can talk more about this. Sorry, I stole your thunder.
Nope, you're good.
It's one of the ones I do.
Yeah.
Yep, the state of Michigan, this September will update 2021 codes. Per the law, we have to have one set in the building for all our inspectors and the public to view in case they want to question a code.
And those have to be current dated, or when do they have to be, what's the?
The last time the state of Michigan updated the code books was 2015, so I'm excited to actually get a new set of code books. They're supposed to be done every 3 years.
The question was, what is the requirement for us to update it?
Like, do we gotta have a 2025 code book, or do we?
2021 is where they're updating from right now, right?
So most of the Michigan Building Code is 2015 that we're operating on right now. And technically, the state of Michigan is supposed to update those every 3 years.
Shame on them.
I see wages at $98,400. Is any of that in paid overtime?
I don't get paid overtime.
Does anyone get paid overtime?
Overtime would be a separate line.
I don't see that line.
No, so there's no overtime on this line.
The reason I
This
ask is it's been a big rumor that we just pay out overtime.
And the overtime is an actual line item expense that you'll see if, where we do overtime.
Okay.
On this fund, let me see if I have a copy of, here. On the building fund, when we're looking at that 10% of the manager, 10% of the clerk treasurer, 10% of the deputy finance officer, 5% of one of our, the deputy clerk treasurer up front, 50% of the building and fire chief, and 50% of the assistant fire chief comes out of the building fund.
It looks like the next highest item is medical insurance, and I think we just recently reviewed medical insurance, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And how many different ones did you look at, Tim?
How many different options did we present, or were we presenting?
Six?
Six.
Six. Yeah.
Thank you, staff.
Okay.
Council, any further questions on building fund?
How come under building inspector fee, we got $0, but on plumber inspector fee, we got 1,700, and mechanical, we got 2,000, electrical, we got 3,600.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it's because we do the building inspecting in-house. We have to contract out the other ones.
Fair enough there.
Correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Council? If you're good, we will move on to data processing, and after data processing, we will take a short break.
All right, so data processing, obviously a big ticket item there, and Lisa can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe, so a lot of this is for our software, like so BSNA, which we use for our utility billing, we use it for our budget, we use it for basically everything that municipalities, and across the state, it's what what municipalities use. I'd say probably 95% of municipalities use BSNA.
And also VC3, our IT.
And also our IT company is on this. Do we have any of the expenses for like Windows upgrades on here or anything? Windows 11 or whatever it is?
No, because the water fund is going to
Okay.
take care of that for us.
All right. So, yeah, so we also are required, it's not represented this, it's on the water fund, not represented here, but we also are going to be required to upgrade our systems to Windows 11 for all the software that, we utilize. And so that's an expense that the water fund is going to pay for
Each
us.
computer.
But what
For each
happens if we
computer.
get rid of data processing, Tim?
Then we can't do any of our, we can't budget, we can't do utility billing, we can't do code enforcement, we can't do,
No water.
we can't collect taxes, we can't do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So maybe that's one everyone's pro for, but yeah.
Got it.
So this is $33,000 a year, and it's the going rate. I mean, we don't have someone
It's a-
dropping
it's
it
a-
out of the back of their van?
It's a standard rate across, yeah, so it's an established rate that BSNA has with us, yeah.
Thank you. Council, any further questions on data processing?
Operating supplies, 3,000. Wouldn't that some of that come off because it's in the building with other operational costs?
So that's a particular line item that's probably, for operating supplies, is probably kind of like our, anything to do with our paper and things that are like in a non-departmental. Because again, we do charge each department, like if, for example, if water and sewer comes and picks up a case of paper, we charge them for the case of paper. But then there's all these funds that are all in the general fund, and we have to find one line item to encompass all of that.
While we're on our break, which we're about to go on, I'll use BSNA in order to go into our budget and see what we've used this line item for in the past and have an answer for you when we get back.
Kind of sounds like they're
Cool.
necessary. Thank you, Tim. All right, let's take a break. It is 7:30. We will resume at 7:40 on the dot. Thank you.
I've got 3 other military veterans up there that need to use their drill sergeant voices as well.
Man,
I'm happy to use my.
apparently I need a deeper voice.
Three eyes on me.
All right.
We also
is
have 2
that everyone?
librarians.
Lisa, if you could call the roll, please.
There.
Wendell,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Costello,
Here.
Cole,
Here.
Kyer,
Here.
Brandon.
Here, let's resume this meeting. And we finished data processing. We are now at clerk treasurer.
Lisa had an answer for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject.
Perfect.
Go up and look up for the operating supplies. So right now, this year, what we have in operating supplies is we have laptops that Tim and I had to purchase because we do work at home, because the previous regime, they bought their laptops when they left. And then we also have to have, in case this laptop goes out, or we have to buy a monitor or something that we need that, and that's what that's budgeted for, because technically $3,000 would get you one computer if
Okay.
one of our desktops left.
Thank you very much for looking that up for me.
Sure.
Also on that, I just want to point out, across the board, we're trying to, as much as possible, going green, as far as less printed copies on things. That's why, like, when most of our meetings, I'll put QR codes, we'll put agendas in the back for people that don't like that, but we're trying to do as much as possible. We've given council the option to, rather than get printed packets, to get, digitally delivered, those kinds of methods as well, to reduce some of these other costs that we have with the paper. So,
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to clerk treasurer. That is one person for us. That is Lisa.
it's a department.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Right. But she was saying I'm one person,
Oh,
the
yeah.
clerk treasurer.
Clerk treasurer.
Yes.
So, council, questions?
What do the asterisks mean?
So the asterisk is what,
Okay.
if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I can, so, early, at the very beginning of the meeting, and if you go to the bottom, I have it kind of quantified. So, the medical, I took 100,000 because of the MERS cuts and all that. We have not allocated where those actual ones will come from which lines of retirement, because we have to do it actual based on it. And we just got this information right before I was publishing this. But I wanted council asked to see those incorporated in this. So what I did is I took 100,000 off of the retirement line for clerk treasurer and 100,000 off of the police one, because those are our 2 biggest lines. And similarly, with our insurance raises, I added an amount to the medical insurance lines for both police and for clerk. So the retirement lines were reduced, and the medical insurance lines were increased based on our new amounts. Those would be smoothed across the different departments to be representative of what they actually are, but I just wanted those numbers in there. So when we're looking at the bottom line dollar at the bottom of the document, we are, thank you. I just got an email saying one of our council members wants it digitally. I just saw it down there. So when you look at the bottom line, you know where we're at with like a 0 budget. Like once we get there, you'll have better representation of it. Those numbers will be over the next like weeks, a week or 2. We'll put those in the appropriate departments. Yeah.
I see there is an overtime line. It is pretty low. It is $200. But it was 1,000 a couple of years ago. So it doesn't look like overtime is just necessary very often, so not a real concern.
What it is for overtime, so we have our deputy clerk treasurers, they do the parks, the planning, and all those meetings, and because they're union employees, they get to choose whether they take comp time or overtime, so it's their choice.
And on this, as you see, the retirement line is very high. It was $100,000 higher than this. It's because this is where those pension liabilities are put into the budget. Some of them are here, some of them are in police, some of them are in DPW and some of those other areas. And it's for those departments that still have people that were on the previous defined benefits plan that we're still having to pay off in the MERS, which won't fall off until about 2040. So we're going to have that pension liability until 2040, based on previous choices that were made, that we're moved away from. We're all defined contributions now, but we have to still honor our commitments that we made in the past.
So there is nothing we can do with that line. That is simply a legal obligation.
For the pension liability, like I said, the very bottom of the document of this packet, I provided the information from MERS where we kind of got that number to be lower for the next few years. It's going to increase, but yeah, at the end of it, we're still responsible for it. It's not like we can just say, no, we're not paying that.
It's a legacy
Okay.
cost.
I'm going to open up a can of worms now. Let's look at the audit services line. $40,000. For what?
That's Plant Moran,
Yeah?
and that's divided amongst all the funds.
And so we are, by charter, we're required, and by Michigan law, we're required to do an audit.
A lot of people maybe wonder what the hell happened if we have an external auditing agency? How did we end up where we are today?
So if you look back at the previous meetings and stuff in the previous years, like I said, 2020, this information was presented to the council at that time. And said, hey, this is where you're facing, you're facing this kind of environment, and council chose not to do anything. I believe that although the information was presented, it was also kind of not made, like, there wasn't alarm bells. Like, as
No
soon as
sense of urgency?
No sense of urgency for it. And I don't know why that is, and I can't speak to past administration, I can't speak to past councils. But like, as soon as we saw this, then we're like, okay, we need to make sure the community knows that this is what we're facing. This is what the council knows, that we're going to be, faced with some really tough decisions.
So, I don't know how long it's been since we've reviewed other auditing agencies. What would council, well, number one, Tim, what do you think that cost is comparative to other areas our size?
I'd have to do some research.
Unsure, okay.
I have a couple people in the audience I could pull, if you don't mind.
Well-
I don't know if Georgia and Jane, do you have any experience in this as far as what these amounts average out to within your communities that you've worked? What's that? No, that's not the, I'm sorry, not the total. Yeah, do you know
No.
the total amount for Plant Moran? I'm sorry.
No,
yeah.
I don't. I'd have to look at all the funds
Yeah.
and add them all up.
As we go through, we can kind of total it out. And we could probably look in,
And Plant Moran
yes, ma'am.
offers us several services, correct? Not just auditing, but other services as well.
Correct.
If council were to consider a different auditing agency, would there be any fallout using them for our other services? Like, would those costs go up? Do they give us package deals? Like, you get auditing and this, you get kind of a discount?
I have not, so because it's been such a legacy contract and I've been reviewing like the new stuff, I have not actually gone through this one to look at. I've been doing the ones that, have expired and, that we've been catching up on. I would have to actually spend some time in it and.
Council, I brought this up because their expenses, expensive, and their competence has been called into question more than once, not by the council, not by the staff, but by the public. Would you, just what's the general consensus of council? Should we begin, when I say soon, I mean ish, because we have a lot of things that are prioritized on staff's plate right now. But would you like to begin searching for another auditing agency at some point?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's add, I've already got it.
Madam President, could I?
Just a moment.
I'm sorry.
Let me finish my sentence and you can go next. It's already been on my to-do list, but this is just, a public formal announcement. And Mr. Wendell, the floor is yours.
I'd like to know about possibly having a separate external audit, because we've had Plant Moran for so many years. I'm not saying anything, but things could have been overlooked, swept around, done something with. Fresh eyes looking at something might tell us, hey, this is why you guys are bleeding money.
Well, when we have money, yeah.
One of the items that I had talked to the village president about previously, I talked to clerk treasurer, kind of when I first came on, it was probably about February or March, when I started seeing, I started going, wait, these numbers aren't making sense in a lot of ways. I don't think that anything was done, I have no evidence that shows that anything was done illegal or anything like that. It just was not we've never just caught up to where we need to be.
I'm not trying to insinuate illegal anyway at all. I'm just saying they might not have put the correct funds of the correct department.
There are companies that do these financial audits for communities, and they do financial forecasts and things that aren't necessarily an audit service like this, but they actually go into our books in more detail and provide us hey, this is your path forward, this is your plan for the next 20, 30 years on what to do. There are some really good companies that do that, but again, it costs money. And so I have some quotes on that, if that's something that council wants to look into. But again, there's
Let's
several
get through
items,
this
it's
speed
gonna
bump
cost,
first.
it's gonna cost money.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council, any further questions on clerk treasurer? I don't really see anything else that's that big of a line, or, do you? All right, moving on to building and ground, please.
Building grounds, part-time wages, there's no full-time employees in buildings and grounds. Part-time wages are the cleaning services that we use for PD and the village offices. DPW takes care of their own buildings. But there's also, if you include this building now, the village probably owns about 20 facilities that we're responsible for. So cleaning supplies come out of that, repairs and maintenance come out of that for the different buildings. Some capital improvements were split off for the fire station and the police department, but that doesn't cover all their costs. So when they run into extraordinary costs, some comes out of here occasionally. But our operating supplies are paper products, cleaning supplies, that kind of stuff, so.
So what happens, you've got a lot of big line items. I'm looking at contractual, communication, utilities, repairs, projects, and capital improvement. What if we gut it? What's that look like? What's the fallout?
Well, the DPW building needs some roof. We have we don't share a wall with the building right next to us on Elm Street, but we can look and see their side of the building pretty easily. That's probably a 100-year-old plus building, used to be a lumber yard. We still have the original tracks. Our salt building needs some attention. Roofing, I've been here 15 years and we've done minor repairs here and there. The furnace at the DPW, we cross our fingers when we leave on Thursday and come back on Monday that the building's still heated, because we have to reset that once the weather gets cold, almost on a regular basis. So you would see a lot of those things fall in more disrepair. And then once again, we have ordinances against blight and building repairs and stuff like that. We would, be hard to enforce without, if our
We
own
have
buildings
employees
were.
working in those buildings?
Yes.
And is safety a concern?
Not currently, but if
Okay.
things continue to not be repaired, then yes.
Okay.
On the repairs and maintenance and that there, do we contract those out, or do we do our own maintenance and repairs and stuff on certain things?
We do both. In the past, the skill set at the DPW has been enough that we've been able to do a lot of stuff in-house. We were able to add a heated building at the DPW for probably about a quarter of the cost if we were to contract it out, because at the time we had employees with the skill set to do that, so a lot of the work was done internally. We've had some retirements and people leave for better money, so now our skill set, we're starting to build that back up again. But any repairs that we could do in-house, we try to do. Other than that, HVAC, those kind of things, plumbing, extraordinary plumbing, then we use a contractor for that.
Brian, can you talk just briefly about staff levels, how they work historically and where we're at now?
Yeah, the DPW consists of, right now, 6 full-time at the DPW. 2 of those employees are dedicated to water, so we have 1 person that runs the water plant, 1 person that does service and work orders and mistakes. So at least 4 employees to take care of the parks, cemetery, the roads, the sewer collection system, and the water transmission. And then we have 4 full-time employees at the wastewater treatment plant, which is a 24/7 operation that, due to the SCADA upgrades from the previous administration, we're able to run mostly remotely after hours. But if they do have an emergency, if they have to come in and they rotate, they are a 7-day operation. We have to run labs per state EGLE requirements. In the past, the DPW had as many as 12 employees, and if you look at their contract, there's 12 positions in there, because at the time that they created that, there was 12 employees. We don't have a full-time sexton at the cemetery anymore. We don't have a full-time mechanic. We don't have extra people to do some of the things that residents that have been around for a long time have noticed. So
actually now we have to send trucks out or whatever to be repaired someplace else, right?
Correct. But we do some repairs in-house, but you know, if it's a safety concern or you know, the guy's gotta have a skill set to be able to work on. I don't wanna put a vehicle back on the road unsafe or cause more damage to it, so we have to use outside sources.
Where you see this a lot, where we hear about this a lot, is in the winter when we have people doing plowing and then we have water in there. Well, then we have all hands on deck in order to take care of the emergency issue because we have no one, you know, we don't have additional people to throw at other problems. Is that accurate?
Yeah, those four guys, the two guys that do water, we have to have one guy mandated at the plant every day. We have work orders every day, digs every day. Those are all mandated by laws that require us to have those people. So at least four guys to plow the streets in the wintertime, take care of any emergency problems, street sweeping during the summer. We're trying to do asphalt repairs from the water issues and sewer issues we had over the winter. And then you throw in vacations, personal sick time, those kind of things that sometimes leaves for a skeleton crew.
Brian, you're juggling a lot of departments, and I thank you for that, and forgive me for the question I'm about to ask. But technically, we could put off capital improvement, project cost, and communications.
Communications and buildings and grounds, that is your telephone lines, your internet, those kind of things like that. So if you don't want phones at DPW, you only
Okay,
want one line.
sorry, I guess I thought that was covered under utilities. So scratch the communications.
Yeah, utilities is your heating, your gas and electric.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can't put those off. We cannot cut wages, we cannot cut contractual, but we could cut capital improvement and project costs, at least for now.
Yes.
Tim, can you reflect that in the budget? We're stripping that from building and ground.
What were the other ones? Sorry.
Capital improvement for 40,000, project costs for 25,000. So now we're not looking at repairing the roof,
Okay.
but it's not an imminent debt. Council consensus, do you agree that this could be postponed for now?
That would be still using the old furnace at the DPW that's been cut from the budget the last 3 years, so.
You said no,
No, new furnace at DPW.
no furnace?
Yeah, no new furnace.
No new furnace?
We've limped this one. This one is a probably late 60s model.
1960s?
Yeah,
Furnace is what you have.
yes.
And how much is the new furnace?
About 15 grand, that's.
15,000?
Yeah. That would have been under project costs or capital improvement, either one.
So if we waited until it broke, would it cost more or the same?
Well, we would, I mean, if you wanted, we would have to have temporary heat until they were able to get, you know, we'd have to get a hold of the contractor that had everything available to fix it right now, and then we'd have to schedule that with them. I mean, it's like anything in your own home. If you call someone in the middle of the night and say, I need a furnace tomorrow, it's gonna be a lot different if they can schedule it out 2 weeks, a month, whatever it may be. So we would have bid this out, got 3 different quotes, and then scheduled.
Well, this whole thing is a risk assessment, so right now we're talking about taking the risks that we can take. in
Yes,
order to
so I mean,
avoid a
yeah,
special
we can
assessment.
take the risk. We've been very fortunate this winter, been able to reset it, but like I said, depending on, you know, if we come in after a long weekend or a holiday weekend, we run the risk of frozen pipes and damaging the
So,
equipment.
council consensus on the removal of project costs and capital improvement.
Take it.
Take it.
Okay, take it for now.
I do have a question about the capital improvement. How is our capital improvement plan coming along? 'Cause we have limited money, but we need to be able to prioritize and look at our plan to see what we can spend it on.
Yeah, so I've developed a capital improvement plan that just has, right now it has our roads, like we take the Pacer rating, which we haven't renewed since 2016, 2017 timeframe. We had updated quotes on some of those things. So the Pacer is your pavement, asphalt, surface, evaluation ratings. And so basically 1 being like, okay, this is now a dirt road where it used to be pavement, and 5 being a brand new road. And so basically saying, all right, if we had everything that's 1 to 3, how are we gonna plan out this? I've done that. We've done a lot of our water sewer infrastructure we've added in there. We've added some of our other big capital items that we look through for the different departments. But again, this is all a wish list because we have no money to fund any of these things.
Right.
I think the only big capital improvement item that we have that you're not gonna see on here is in the water or sewer fund, right, is the pump station.
Yeah, it's a lift station, it's a Apollo Street lift station. I think we bought that from the previous, when Hawaiian Gardens was a private community, they bought it for $1. That was the best dollar he ever got. So the village took over that, and that, that is probably late 70s. So we got a 50-year lift station that maintains 2 mobile home communities and the plaza on North Holly Road. And it's in an area about a third the size of this room, and it's about 20 feet deep, so.
And that's an improvement that's just necessary, and I think, is it water sewer split, or is it?
It's sewer.
It's sewer, and it's 800,000 approximately? 850,000, but it's a necessity, like if it fails, then those residents are out of luck on that, and that we're limping by on it right now. But again, separate fund, we're not talking general fund with that.
Right, so just for the answer, it's still coming along.
It's still coming along, yeah, and we can discuss it whenever, but at the same time, we've not had enough money to even, like, we need to answer these questions right now as far as how do we do a balanced budget? And then the follow-on questions are be like, all right, now we have this capital improvement plan, because one of those things, I can list projects and a wish list all day, but you're supposed to identify years, fiscal years that go with it. Well, until we have a budget that can sustain any of those things, all of it is to be determined on the right. So I have a list of projects.
I'm just coming from the standpoint of, I've watched meetings on that side and now also on this side, and whenever something breaks, it's always an emergency. So having a capital improvement plan to like gauge out where that emergency stands compared to everything else.
Yeah, so we've
Be good.
got that for roads, we've got that for water, sewer, and, and some other departmental things. Not completely done. I mean, originally, we were doing this through Roe. When Roe provided me their draft version of it, I said, this is not a capital improvement plan, this is not what one is supposed to look like. And so I kind of took that on as their slang when we said, Roe, we're not paying you for this particular service because you didn't provide it. And so we've taken that on as our own project. And again, I can bring it to council whenever they're ready, but, it's a lower tier priority as we're just trying to fund everything else because we know it's wish list until we can have long-term strategies for additional income.
Council, any further questions about building and ground?
Well, I have one question regarding, I guess, them all, everything as a whole right now. I was just trying to add it up, but I didn't get a chance to. We are paying well over $160,000 in utilities. And what are we paying that for? How many buildings are we paying utilities on? Every department has something. The police department's $3,500, but then we got building and grounds is $45,000, and treasurer and clerk. It's just, it ain't making sense to me.
And all of these items, we could provide, so within BSNA, our budgeting software, we can show receipts for everything. So it's not like we're just arbitrarily putting money on things. Like when it's a utilities item, we can go back in and look at the receipts for this line item and show what is actually being paid out and covered. And if that's something at that level of specificity that, that council would like to see, of course, I mean, we can provide that. I don't know, Lisa, did you have anything else you want to add to that, or Brian?
Yeah, it's gas, electric, at all the buildings. Like I said, the cemetery has 3 buildings, so there's gas and electric on all 3 of those buildings. The DPW has 3 buildings. There's gas and electric on all those buildings.
Does that include water? I heard our water's expensive.
You know?
Yes, we do pay,
Yes, water.
we do pay back, we do, our water in all our buildings is metered,
Yeah, that
and we do
explains it.
receive a bill.
And so these furnaces that you're running are not energy efficient?
Correct.
Great question, trustee Cole.
Councilman?
When they were built, that wasn't a word.
Yeah. Yes, I can provide pictures of all the furnaces that are in the older buildings, if necessary. I mean, we have overhead, and we had one heated bay for many years at the DPW, so during the winter, we would rotate vehicles down to thaw them out. We were able to finally get a heated building where we were able to keep our stuff heated, so when we have to go out, we're not thawing stuff out, so.
You also have to keep it temperature controlled for your servers, is that
And
correct?
yes, I have, at the DPW, there's 2 computers. One's used for, when I did have a clerical staff, they use that, and now it's used for misdigs and work orders. And then I have a desktop at my desk.
Thank you.
One more question for the buildings. Can we reduce down the number of buildings that we use to save on that, or we need all of them currently?
If we want stuff sitting outside, yes.
Okay.
And if we don't store stuff for Yeah, we have our water stuff in a couple of the buildings, our extra valves, repair clamps, that kind of stuff. Generators are stored inside, our equipment is stored inside, so, yeah, some of that stuff would sit outside, and then you run the risk of, when you need it, it's full of critters, or it doesn't start, because it's,
So that takes the risk of those items breaking down, and generators and whatnot are very expensive.
yes.
So part of the capital improvement plan that we talked about, we also have worked with staff. So we're creating all these documents. These documents have never existed before. And so one of the things we're doing is an asset management plan as well. So like what assets, like within this building, what exists that we need to maintain, repair, furnaces, all these things. And so part of that is like by serial number, doing that and talking about what is a life cycle plan for these items. When we're talking like computers, you know, like what is the average life cycle of a computer, so we can do future budgeting for that. Because in the past, the budgets have been run until it breaks, or looking at just what's ahead of us this next year, and we've not been projecting out. Again, we've never been afforded the opportunity to be strategic in our budgeting, to look ahead and do capital improvement plans, asset management. We still aren't at that place, but we're trying to build, the staff is trying to build the framework of that, so that we know when we're ready for it, we have at least that foundation ready to go. So.
Thank you.
Okay, council, any further questions on buildings and grounds? All right, thank you. Brian, moving on to police department, please.
Just cramps out of your legs.
Hi, chief.
So as everyone's looking over this and we're kind of going, I will say before Chief gets up here, and this is the number I've thrown out before. So if other people have talked about, you know, what it would look like if we contracted out. What would that cost if we were to get the same level of service from Oakland County, which would be the realistic place that we'd have to contract that out from. In the Springfield Charter Township has a very similar setup as us, 9 officers, similar to what the chief has. And our bottom line on this item right now is $1.9 million. Springfield Charter Township, their bill for this from Oakland County is $3.8 million for the same level of service. So,
They actually, Springfield Township, I went to their website, the budget they just passed April 30th, 2025 is $5.3 million for the
okay.
police.
I was doing that approximate on the 35% increase.
So yeah, they are looking at 5.3 million for the same number of officers at Springfield Township. It is on their website, it's publicly posted, you can look it up in their minutes.
5.3 million for their police officers.
5.3 million, they're also charging 3.1 million for their fire department.
Thank
Now
you.
granted, they, I believe, have more firefighters.
More fire, sure.
And they do employ more full-time firefighters than we do, but.
Thank you, Shannon.
I can also give you Brandon's, because I personally went and spoke with area township supervisors just to be sure we are getting the same information. Oakland County has upped their police fund and how much this costs. The commissioners are the ones who decided to do so. Every township that surrounds us is currently trying to come up with money. Brandon Township told me that they are good for 2025, but will be looking for ways to increase funds for 26 and 27. They did lay off an officer. Springfield Township, like I said, has gone up. Independence is looking to raise $1.8 million. And Orion Township and Brandon are both in the process of looking at costs to establish a police department of their own and not through Oakland County. But that requires repurchasing all of the equipment because they no longer have it. All of that information is publicly posted. I got off of the websites that the Brandon Township, Independence, Springfield, all of those post their budgets as well, and that is where I got that information.
And that's what you get when council has a librarian. Thank you. Shannon. Overtime, please.
Overtime, happy to, but if I may, could I make a statement that kind of qualifies this?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
So I kind of come to you tonight here with some bad news and some good news. I'm going to start with the bad news. And I've said this bad news, I've been here 6 years. This is my 6th budget that I've presented, and I've presented the same bad news for 6 years. And I appreciate that this is the first time I get to say it in this format. And thank you so much for those comparisons. We've been looking at those at years. The only option you have outside of the Holly Police Department is the Sheriff's Office. The Michigan State Police, I'm not going to go too deep on this because it's operational security for them as for the state as well. But I spend quite a bit of time talking with the First Lieutenant who's in command of the Metro North Post, as well as people above him and people in the business that I've known at the state police for almost 40 years. They are having the same exact staffing crisis that every law enforcement agency in the country is. The Metro North Post is where the troopers come that supply to the Groveland Township Post. They're at about 1/4 staffing levels from what they used to be, and they're still unable to get staffing as well. So the difference also is the state police would not be able to accommodate our charter community. So you're left with a contracted police agency. The only one that you could contract with would be the Sheriff's Office, and they're 3 times higher. Now here's the bad news. That's actually the good news for us, right? Because we're doing it for a pretty cheap rate. We're the cheapest rate in Oakland County, that's been mentioned, and for most of the state. However, that's become a problem. I think everybody in here knows our staff. They're amazing. They're cool people. They love this town. What we try to do, what I do as an administrator when I come in, is look at all of the flaws and weaknesses where we can fix them for as cheap as possible. But how can we build that department and make it better and make it something good? One of the things we wanted to look at was our legacy, and we needed to get new people. So as people left, we brought in younger people. We were, in the last 3 years, able to bring some people in, but in the last 3 years, we've lost every new person that we've hired, and we're now 1 person in the hole. So we've had 4 full-time people leave us in the last 2 years for other departments because we cannot compete.
By compete, you mean offer a competitive wage?
Offer competitive wages.
Thank you.
And the problem with that, and this is the bad news that I'm talking about, and where I'm going to take this into is why the budget looks the way it does at sometimes, is when you have 47 other agencies just in Oakland County and every one of them is hiring, because the law enforcement can't keep up. So how they do that, other agencies will shoplift from other departments, and usually guys like us, because we pay lower. So I lost 2 officers in 1 week to one department that the starting pay is $92,000. So they reached out to one, and he mentioned to his friend, so we lost 2 guys in 1 week there. And we've lost 2 more, 4 total. So we pay $47,000 to start, and we top at 63. I erred by saying 67. Most departments are coming in the 80s to the 90s and mid-90s for starting pay for law enforcement. And there's a lot of background requirements to that. So the bad news is the second cliff for me is in 3 years, every member of your department, every member I'm about to talk about, the 9 police officers, is eligible to retire. In 3 years, every member of the police department is eligible to retire. I have not been able to hire anybody in 3 years because we can't compete. In 3 more years, you're going to have a choice of we're not going to have a department by attrition, or you're going to pay the larger price. So there's a way to resolve that. I'm not trying to step into that zone, but part of the budget that we're about to look at, that's how we're balancing being out of balance. If you look at all of our budget, the majority of it, Your Honor, you are correct, is our overtime.
Thank you.
And part of that reason is I'm real big on part-time. I've used part-time for 26 years as a police chief, and there's an effective way to do that. The advantage of part-time, I call them $1 million babies. These are the best of the best. They've worked 20 to 25 years in a department. They got all of the advanced training. Some of them are computer experts, child sexual assault experts, and some of the best. They retire, but they don't want to leave the field. So they know guys like me are out there, so they'll call you up and say, hey, I'm going to retire in 2 months. So we hire those. So they're phenomenal law enforcement officers. Now I get to hire them at a lower wage,
and no benefits. That is a win-win for everybody. And if I do have a major incident, I can call in a computer forensic expert, a child sexual assault expert who has prosecuted some of the cases you watched on TV. Now, currently, I have one of those people left on staff, but that used to be the heyday, and I could get those all day long. I can carry by union contract 10 part-time officers. Right now, we have 2. And one of them is getting older like me, and unfortunately, he's out on a medical issue. He's been out for several months, and he's going to be out for, I think, a few more. So I'm down to 1. And he's a young guy that's in college, and he's going to stay until he gets out of college. So absent the part-time, they were the cost-effective, no-benefit way to backfill all of the leave time because we're 24/7, 365. So I would use part-time heavily if an officer was on leave time, sick time, vacation time, or some type of emergency, our part-time would step up. With no part-time, we keep a minimum of, all we have is 2 officers on duty. That's it on our shift. But we can't go down from that. We just can't. We don't have backup. So we're the Northwest Oakland County Law Enforcement Agency, and we're proud of that. And we can handle just about anything, but I'm not going to put one officer out there. So if one of those officers is out, we're down an officer, we have to backfill that with full-time. And Madam President, that is why this year, and this is the first year that I've had to deal with this because I've lost all of my part-time tire paying agencies, and I can't, no one will apply. We pay $20 an hour to be a police officer part-time. I can get that at McDonald's. Most departments around us are $30 an hour for part-time, and nobody will come for 20. And it's difficult because I sit here and I'm kind of venting to you because we need those.
What is the current starting wage?
20.
I made more than that at Uber when I was in grad school.
And you know, and these people are trained and they're at high risk. But the bigger thing is they love their field, and there's 25 other police agencies hiring right now. I could name one that has 70 openings, 70 police officer openings right now. They're 10 miles away, and they pay $92,000 to start. So Holly's not in the market.
Chief, I think that you've justified overtime.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Tim,
I'm
how
done.
much is Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
Well, as comparable, we haven't asked for a direct quote from them, but the same level of service, again, we were looking at the time, when we were doing the estimate, it was 3.8 is,
3.8 million?
But what Shannon just said, if they're maintaining the same level of service, I don't know if that increased their level of service or anything like that. So it would be between, I guess, 3.8 and 5.3 million.
Okay, so 3.8 to 5.3 million to maintain the same level of service that we currently have. And
Well, same level of service, it's not the same level of service, because they're not local officers.
And I can say
It's all-
Brandon's police force right now pays, or Brandon Township's residents pay a 3.6 mil to support their police, which covers this year for them.
And
Now, I can't tell you how much that is. That was what I could find on their website, but Brandon alone, just for their police, is 3.6 mils. They also pay 4.29 mils for fire, so they're roughly at 8 mils for public service like that.
I think what I'm also hearing from the chief is that we're as shyly staffed as we can get away with.
We are, and I also want to add that the budget that I presented this year does not correct any of those issues. I've kept this as, it's basically the same budget I presented for 6 years.
This isn't dealing with the.
It does not fix any of those issues.
The 3-year looming issue.
And I will also add that this is not apples to apples. We have more staff than Springfield. For that 5 million, that didn't include our code enforcement that you have. That also doesn't include our staff that are public safety, our clerks that work in our office. We have an open building. A lot of departments don't have open buildings. We do that to have people come in and get records. And really, it's a safe haven. I can't tell you how many times people come in.
And Springfield is Oakland County Sheriff's, and they do employ a school resource officer out of that budget.
Okay, good.
And
You're also talking about delayed delayed time to get to a scene, correct? Where if we contract it out through Oakland County versus us, we have what, like a 3 to 4 minute,
Well, we're fast, and you have what's legacy knowledge. You probably got 200 to 300 years of Holly police officer experience on your staff right now. That's the good. I said I had some good news. That's the good. You have intrinsic legacy knowledge in the staff you have. They love and know this town. That's what you lose if you contract with a department where they have contracts that say I can shift bump and your people come and change, and this month it's a different officer or deputy or trooper. So you have the people that solve crime quickly because they know the town and they know where it's happening and who's doing it. We can't say that, but we can tell you. So that legacy knowledge is important.
Speaking of legacy, the retirement is one of the bigger line items. It's nearly $400,000, but that's a legal obligation, correct?
That's a
We
legal
can't touch it.
obligation, yeah. And
Okay.
we no longer have our defined benefit in law enforcement. So, I mean, council, if you have any questions on any of these accounts, like I said, this is basically the same budget that I've presented for the last 6 years, and it's just kind of for inflation. Here's an example. This little prep radio. If you're on price and right, nobody here is going to win. This is $10,000 for one portable radio. I can't send an officer out without one. This is $10,000.
Quit banging it.
Well, that's why they're 10,000. You can drop them from a helicopter. They'll go underwater, and when you push the button, they can hear you. It's like having a Corvette versus a Chevette. There's no difference on the engine, but if you go to buy the plugs, there are always more. So pretty much everything in here, we have computers in the cars. We have to meet state and federal mandated training requirements. All of our communications have to be encrypted. They have to meet. We're the same. We operate what's called CLEMIS, the Courts and Law Enforcement Information Management System. We're CLEMIS. Every police agency in Oakland County, actually 5 counties is. But there's costs to that, and those costs go up at an average of 10% a year. Our dispatch costs too.
For an example about meeting requirements, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but this is from what I remember speaking to you about it several times in the past. Vehicle fuel is so high because an on-duty cop car needs to be left running so that the software is up and ready to go, correct?
It is unfortunate, yes. Everything in our police cars are computer-driven, and again, they're 24/7 operated. But everything is computer-driven, our communications, our data. And if you leave those off in the wintertime and it's snowing, the last thing you want is if it's your house that we have to get to quickly, but first we got to scrape our windows. So, and in the summertime, the heat shuts down the computers. They still have not perfected that for us, so they have to leave those on. We leave them in idle, but most of the time they're out on the road. They're not in too often. But even if they're in writing reports, those are idling to keep the computer and data systems protected.
No, Chief, I've heard and not seen, but heard that like some K-9 units have a sensor in there that automatically will restart the car when it gets to a certain temperature. Can't we invest something in that on our cars so we're not constantly running them all the time?
I would love to have something like that. I've not heard of that. I know they have different remote options for those vehicles, but if that's something that isn't $10,000, I'd love to take a look at it. Good
No, I'm
point.
just.
Good point.
I didn't, or even that, if it's a matter of keeping them cool or something like that, or just not keeping them cool, but keeping them up and running, couldn't we, like, how you have to plug in a diesel truck in the wintertime and anytime, couldn't we just plug it in so it runs off of shore power, and then when it starts up the car, then it runs off of its own power?
I'll look into it. I mean, these are gas engine. But I'm going to look into that temperature-based starting system.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
So now that we know, you said state's not an option due to operational security. Oakland County Sheriff's Office costs 2 times more than what we're currently paying. So I don't see that being a fiscally responsible option. So, and cutting overtime's not an option because that would leave officers endangered.
And can I also say, we're not staffing, I'm not putting people on like on an extra shift. I don't have any traffic patrols out there. It's unfortunate. I don't have any this patrol or that patrol. What we have is our 2 officers on duty and our SROs in the school, and when they're not in the school, they're back on duty. So this is bare minimum staffing for safety. So when you look at that overtime, and I know people will say, well, they're putting guys on details or men and women on detail. I'm not. I have nothing in here other than road patrol. The only time we ever do emergency staffing is if we have a major investigation and I have to bring in some folks, we're gonna bring them in.
Chief, I mentioned it before, and then you just brought it up again about the SROs. The school district pays about 65% of their salary. We're left paying the 35%. If I'm gonna loan out an employee, I would expect to get 100% of their pay while they're 100% on your facility. If I can't get that, then you're not getting them no more.
You are getting that. They're only there 65% of the time. The other percent of the time, they're on duty working with us.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because that's what I want to make sure is clarified.
Okay. Further, it is in our charter that we have to maintain the service of police, correct, Tim?
Yeah, to some extent, you know, every Michigan municipality that is, that has a charter is required to provide some level of police service, code enforcement, police chief. What that is defined as, there's some subjectivity there, and it's really at what the service level of the community they expect.
Can you think of any options besides state, which is out, Oakland County, which is more, or village, the way that it currently exists? What do you got?
I have a question. So, because we were saying that we have, what, 10 right now, full-time, and we have 3 command, and so why could we not have command and just have patrol officers?
The command are patrol officers, so they're doing both. We don't have the classic sergeant so our command officers are actually covering a shift. And not only that, you have to meet, and here again, we get into the risk and liability. I think everybody's looked at or watched in the news or in the media the focus that's in law enforcement over the last 5 years. That has boiled down to requirements. And there is, it's a duty to train and a duty to supervise are the 2 things that every risk liability lawyer that goes after police departments, they will tell you, and I go to trainings on this as an administrator, but the duty to train and duty to supervise are your 2 biggest liabilities, which means if you get a lawsuit and you're failing and not meeting the criteria in either one of those, you're gonna add a comma and a couple of zeros, maybe another comma, because they're gonna come at you because you're not meeting the requirements. So we now have a lot more training requirements, which thank goodness this budget reflects that we're getting more money from the state for training because they've been updating that training mandate. But when I got here, we didn't have the sufficient command staff. We do now, we're blessed. We meet, we don't exceed, but we meet our minimum requirements on command staffing. I have a midnight staff and a day shift command, midnight command, a day shift command, and then an administrative sergeant. So we just meet that. And we could pull the sergeants out, but then I think the 4 or 5% bump that you pay a sergeant in cost isn't worth the risk you have when if something goes wrong, the first thing a risk liability attorney is going to look at and they go, oh, they have no command. That puts us in a higher risk liability. And quite honestly, our Michigan Municipal League and our MMRMA might not look too favorably on that.
So this is a informal ethical protocol?
It's an informal federal and state recommendation guideline for command structure and training. Training and supervision are 2 things that if you cut, you lose.
Okay, council, any line items that you can imagine cutting from police?
What is the CEP funding?
What did you say, CET?
CEP, that's continuing education funding, and that is a mandate that went into effect in July of last year.
Okay.
And that's an error.
That's why it wasn't on the previous years.
Yeah, and that's actually an error. It's not a budgeted item. That's a revenue item.
No,
So,
it's both.
I get $12,000 from the state.
Yes.
It's an in and out, it's a pass-through line, yeah.
And it's a revenue and an
So,
expense.
and what you're not seeing on the revenue side is I got $12,000 and the race is on to spend, and we will. We'll spend that on our consortium and our other training. So that's funded by the state.
Council, any other lines that you can see?
Yes, contractual, what is our contractual line?
Contractual covers a lot of things. That covers our Clemis, Courts and Law Enforcement Information, and that's our mugshot system, our fingerprint system, our computers in the cars, and all of that. It's pretty expensive stuff, but that also covers our janitorial services. We get 3 days a week. When you're there 24/7, I'll tell you right now, cops are messy. Whoa.
Perfect. What about office equipment and fixtures? We went
Office
from
equipment.
5 grand to 20 grand.
That year I put that in because I'm asking for 2 more of these because we are missing, we're about 8 radios short. So my goal was to do 2 a year for the next 3 or 4 years to meet it. But when we have events, if you see sometimes where there's 2 officers hanging together, it's because one of them doesn't have a radio.
I
So,
think that probably needs to be recategorized then to
Yeah.
equipment rather than.
Office equipment.
That may be the computers.
oh, yeah, I am sorry. I am sorry, I looked at the wrong line. That's under the equipment line. That's the computers. And again, joy, we just found out that none of our computers that are 4 years old are Windows 11 compliant.
Compatible? Okay.
What about vehicles, $65,000?
That's paying back water sewer fund from a previous,
I thought both vehicles only costed $60,000, or was that 60,000 each?
It's 3 vehicles for 65. That's there. We get a discount, but this year they went up. So we talk about cost of inflation. For the last 30 years, I've been buying patrol cars every 3 years, and they're usually about $1,400 increase every 3. It's been that way for 30 years. This year they were $13,000 more from Ford. And we had to buy 3. So every 3 years we buy 3 because they just wear out. They're running 24/7. Then we move them down. We don't get rid of them. We keep the older ones for SRO.
Well, I have seen
Code
SROs have
enforcement.
the new ones sitting at the schools.
That's if one's in the shop. So the old ones do have a lot of maintenance. But yeah, that's the 65 is the repayment at a lower
So we cannot
interest.
get rid of that because we owe that.
Because we owe.
Yeah, we're obligated. And it's the lowest interest rate out there.
And then
To
we've got a
ourselves.
tiny one here, capital improvement, 6,000. Why do you want it?
I don't know when I'm gonna do that 6,000 yet, but our building was built in 1985. And I had it painted when I got here in 2019, and that was the first change to the building. So everything is rotting in there, and somebody mentioned here, I can't remember who it was, why do we always have to do emergencies? I had 2 AC furnaces go out in the middle of winter, and those were emergencies. And then, so that's what seems to happen, because we don't have a CIP. So I think the 6,000 this year is for gutters, downspouts, we don't have any. And
12,000 from this last year.
the 12,000 in the last year was from the cells, but that actually turned into 15,000, so I'm over budget on that by 5. Yeah, 3 or 4.
And
So.
we don't own the building yet, do we?
Yeah,
What about the land?
I'm sorry?
What about the land?
That's village owned.
Well, then why do we spend $14,400 on a land contract for 313 South Broad Street?
313 is a building next door, that should be income.
It's, well, it shows.
313 is the old fire hall, which is
When
the
I,
building
when I
next door.
looked it up, like Google puts it as the police station, that's why I.
No, we're 315. 313 is the building that's now the gather station. That's
I
the old
think
fire
maybe
department,
like Google.
and that, yeah,
So I'm sorry, you said that's revenue.
that should be revenue, yeah.
Okay.
Because it comes as a, well, maybe it
He's
isn't.
in the sub.
And I have a question about like buildings and things because we have to ask it. Is it feasible to house the police department with the fire department in that new building? Because we don't jail.
There,
Correct.
well, there's that, there's technology issues, there's a lot of cryptic technology, and there's just a lot of things. Yeah,
We just had our lean audit, which is every 3 years, the Michigan State Police. All of our communications are, it's called Criminal Justice Information, CJI. It used to be called lean, or Law Enforcement Information Systems. The public can't see that. There's federal and state laws, so, now we just found out that we gotta have a logbook. So anybody that comes in and comes past our door, now I gotta have doesn't matter if it's Tim, doesn't matter if it's DPW coming in or a firefighter, they gotta sign a logbook. So we are in such a secure world, it would be a bit of a nightmare.
Okay.
But I mean, and the officers, maintain it pretty good, it's just when the ACs go out.
Council, do you see any other lines you could consider cutting? I see capital improvement. That's it, $6,000. Anyone else? What am I missing?
You're not missing anything, but honestly, I mean, as terrible as it is, how many officers would we lose if we took 200K out of your wages? 2?
We would lose about, because keep in mind our top pay is 63, and then with benefits, we'd probably lose up to 3 because of.
Out of 9 total, correct?
And,
But then would
but I'm
would
3 officers,
overtime-
I'm 2 officers short right now,
Would-
and we're paying all the overtime because
Overtime would go up because you still have to have
Overtime's
2
gonna go up.
officers on staff at all times.
I'm in a loop.
Where do you land on that?
The only solution that we've kind of talked about is if we're able to increase our part-time officers, if we have more part-time officers, then we're paying less in overtime, which costs more. But to get part-time officers, we have to pay them.
Offer a higher
We have
wage.
to go up to like 25 an hour, at least, bare
Well-
minimum, in order to incentivize.
Because this is just a plan, and
You're right, yeah.
But anyways, if we were to say, okay, well, let's cut overtime in half, and let's flip that down to up the pay for our part-timers, so we can try to get more in.
That's my plan this year.
Yes.
Not by half, but I've got actual numbers.
I'm just picking out half as an easy in my.
And luckily, our union has already agreed, we're in negotiations to reopen the contract, do that. We've got a very cool union, our staff. So I think that's going to happen, and that's how we're gonna do it, is adjust our overtime schedule, because I won't have to pay that. The question then becomes, can I hit that sweet spot where people will come to Holly and not go to the other department? Because I need more than 2.
Well, and my other question was.
I need
is
about
that
5.
In comparison, because we're one of the lower paid districts or departments, compare us to size, community, crime, and everything else, how do we rate towards other communities?
We're doing you have an amazing staff.
Let me
The number of officers, and it's kind of unique because in Northwest Oakland County, we're the only police department. We're it. So you have substations in Highland, you have a substation in Springfield, and you have a substation down in Clarkston, and you have a state police post that they do their best to staff over in Groveland, but we're the only police station. So we don't have that neighbor-to-neighbor border where they have 10 officers and they got 4 on duty and we have 2 on duty so we can back each other. We don't have that. Everything's 30, 40 minutes away for us.
Well, what I was trying to mean, Chief.
We match equally departments our size, municipalities our size. So it's kind of apples to apples.
I was meaning like for pay-wise, are we I know we're not competitive per dollar for dollar, but for the amount of work they have to, our officers do a great job. I'm not saying they don't. For the amount of work they do, is it pretty compatible for what they would do, let's say if they went to Birmingham?
No,
No, they do more here.
we pay 20 an hour. They do more. They have less staff, and other places start at
I've worked
30.
in multiple departments and I meet every month with every chief in Oakland County, and I can tell you our staff is jumping and running, and they're the lowest paid.
That's why I was
They're just loyal, and
That's why, it was a loyalty, or was it something else? That's all.
it's loyalty, and they love this town, and they love their job. But my gorilla in the room for everybody tonight is, and for me too, is to figure this out, because I'm not leaving till I do.
It is almost 9 o'clock, and we have several sections to cover
Yep,
still.
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Kyer, where did you land on your thought regarding cutting back on some of their,
mean, it's our biggest ticket item, so where are we gonna take from, right? We've been piecemealing 20K here, 10K here. I mean, it's one of the biggest places that we can take money. No, I don't want to do this, but if we want to get to this number, it's going to have to come out of here. We're going to have to take a substantial amount out of police.
And if you're removing officers, we have to clear that with the union. We have to negotiate with the union, all of that, because we have a basic contracted amount of officers that we are.
But it also raises the overtime because you can't leave a cop on his own.
Well, and they can't work 48-hour shifts. They're not sleeping there. I need to move on just one question, and I feel like it ties to police, but I have a question about dispatch. And we can get to their actual numbers, but as I was reading through the minutes of the Brandon Township, their last meeting, one of the things they brought up was trying to contract their dispatch out to another company. And they were not able to because they have to contract through Oakland County because they police through Oakland County. We do not police through Oakland County. Is there other dispatch companies that we can use in place of Oakland County?
Which is a next budget item.
Right, but would that then save police?
The first answer the community gave you isn't correct.
Okay.
You can split up. There are other places, but I've budgeted that out in a previous life. This really is probably the cheapest I've found.
Okay.
And it's a lot cheaper than when we had a 911 center. It'd be about $600,000-800,000 or more. And even if we go to, because now everything's fiber optic, so technically we could contract out with Los Angeles because it's fiber optic, wherever the phone rings and they push a button and dispatches. But with a lot of the interconnecting backup services we have, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office does a great job. We work closely with their Homeland Security and with their special teams that everybody in the county gets for free.
Okay.
Other than, their taxes, that's the canine dogs, helicopters, stuff like that. So that's a added bonus. We're already plugged in.
That works for me. I wanted to ask under
Yeah.
the police idea because it affects you the most.
What was the Brandon Township millage that you stated?
I show from their, let's see, May 25, they are showing police is 3.6 mils.
Okay. I've got
And,
their taxable value, so I can do a quick calculation, tell you how much they,
and that remained the same on November 15th, 24, before they were talking about it in May.
so it's about $2.4 million.
Okay, Jerry and Tim, if we completely gutted police, we brought it down to simply Jerry, just the chief, no one else. He's laughing, this isn't good. And we relied on state, and I understand that they can't offer much help due to operational security. Paint me a picture.
You want me or?
Please, everybody, come to my retirement party. That's the picture. I just realistically, I mean, I love you, Holly, but you're a busy town. And we're jumping. I couldn't.
You calling us a bunch of delinquents, Jerry?
No, I couldn't keep up with you. That's all. I'm just old. That's what I'm saying. It just wouldn't work. I mean, I hear you both, and I would tell you, you know what, let's cut half.
It's painful, but we have to find $600,000.
I know. And I want to tell you, let's cut half the officers and put one officer on duty. The other officers remaining, every single one of them, within 2 weeks, will be working for someplace else, making $40,000 a year more because it's their safety now.
Yeah,
And I just can't.
I think that's the answer that we get. If we gut police, we lose police.
And just because our charter is not defined in that doesn't mean Michigan laws don't require us to do things like code enforcement, don't require us to have, when we looked at this originally, I talked about what the charter says, but I didn't talk about what MCL, like what those requirements are. And so we'd have to dive further into that, what our actual requirements are in Michigan, in order, and the chief says it all the time, and I think a lot of people agree, that the number one responsibility of village government or government is to provide protection of different sorts to their residents. And so,
Chief, I apologize and thank you for putting up with me today. Tim, what's it look like for our local businesses and banks if we don't offer police?
a lot of them, a lot of business, and Chief probably can talk about this even more so than I can, but they are, some of their insurances are tied to the proximity of police departments. You know, we would, I know that, you know, it sounds like I'm catastrophizing, but we lose a lot of businesses. We lose a lot of new business, specifically places that are coming in, because we're not providing police protection. I can't say what crime is going to do, like what it's going to look like crime-wise, but I can say that we would become a lot less attractive as far as economic development goes. Property values would go down across the board.
Your homeowner's insurance would probably raise as
Homeowner
well,
insurance,
correct?
yep, as well, because you can't, yep. So-
Banks are out of Dodge.
Yep.
Banks and pharmacies, usually, there's gonna be
pharmacies are out of
corporate,
Dodge, yeah.
especially corporate, yeah, they're not gonna go where there's not a dedicated, and the state police, Lieutenant Beardsley, First Lieutenant Beardsley will tell everybody, he says, it's a default agency, it's not your agency, it's default. Meaning, if they have the ability and the availability, they'll come, and when they come is up to them.
Every community has people that struggle with addiction, and Holly's no exception. And one of the things that keeps our local addicts at bay from robbing those pharmacies is our show of police, right?
100%.
Thank you. Council, ideas?
Has to stay the way it is. It sucks to say it like
I
that.
can't
but-
give
Thank you,
any,
Daniel.
I can't give any other ideas. I mean, he's right at the minimum right now.
Yep.
There's no way to go.
Thank you, Buster.
But
We're still kicking the can down the road. You hear Chief say 3 years we're screwed, so.
In 3 years, we're screwed.
Well, let's worry about 3 years then.
That's what got us.
That's where
in
we're
this
at
mess.
right
I
now.
know that, I mean, I'd like to be
That's
able
what
to
they've been
raise
saying
it.
the last 40 years that put us here today.
Well, I think the thing is, right, like when I say these things like 200K or whatever, we need all of you to understand, like, that's what this would do. It doesn't necessarily mean that we want to take that, but if you want this 600K for tightening the belt, this is what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can say what led me to look at our area townships and why I started pulling this up is because what if we do go to Oakland County? What does that look like? We can't afford Oakland County, and with everybody else also using Oakland County and what these other municipalities are going through and trying to cover, seeing in their minutes that Brandon's like, well, we can place out starting our own police force for 26, 27. What does that look like? They're just trying to get prices. They don't have anything. And that's in their minutes. So I wasn't at the full meeting. I don't know the full conversation. But they're looking at that. And then I look at Holly Township. They use state police. There's mutual aid that has to reach them, whether it's our police officers who are giving mutual aid to the state in Holly Township, whether it's Springfield Township, who does respond for mutual aid for Holly. They're all over, and I don't necessarily know how we cut this budget and leave this whole corner, which is my home. I'm also your neighbor. Completely, like, I'm just not sure where we go. And that's why I am looking at these other municipalities and what it costs. Would I love a quote from Oakland County? Yes. What if they give us a 5-year deal? But then we lose all of the equipment we have, and we're in the boat of these other places who are trying to figure out, can they buy equipment and start their own police force? That's what I'm grappling with in this.
So one of the things that we've been talking about, and this is not an immediate fix, but long-term strategy, things that we can have conversations about if we want to pursue this route, is that, like you said, every other community is looking for more affordable options. And one of the ways that we can cut down on our costs is if we share the costs with other communities. So if there's other surrounding communities that want to use our police protection, then then we could create a police authority, a fire authority, that covers some of these other expenses for these other communities, share the cost, and then we get additional officers that cover everything, and we don't know exactly what that looks like. These are just conversations that we're having for like longer term strategy things. Like, what does it look like if, Springfield Charter Township didn't want to pay $5.3 million and they wanted to pay Holly $2 million for it? And we double our police force size, but we're under one administration and doing that. So like, those are some of the conversations, like, again, these are like the strategic conversations we're having about, like, what would that look like if we were to do that in the future? Again, that's not going to fix where we're at today, but those are conversations that I want to have, in the future with council about a lot of things.
Final question on police, and we're moving on to dispatch. If we just get rid of police and we wait on state, what's the response time?
Toe tag?
I can't. I don't dare. I don't want to disclose you know, conversations I've had with MSP command staff, but I know they're struggling too. And I think from a statewide perspective, they're in worse shape than we are.
Thank you. Let's move on to dispatch. I don't have, $6,000, take it off. Capital improvement.
And so just kind of barometer check right now, we still have the deficit of $484,000. So we just finished with this.
But you took the 6,000 off, right?
6,000.
Thank you. Dispatch.
So I think contracted costs, I don't think we,
The part-time at the top of the category, that is our public service agents, our clerks. That also includes our, we have 3 school crossing guards. Now, we get reimbursed 100% for those, but I got to show an out. So they're in there. Our civilian records and clerical staff, we call public service agents because they actually perform PBTs. They give PBTs to people, and they do a lot of things. So clerk just seemed demeaning.
This holds hands with the police budget. Council, do you see anything that you can cut?
No.
Let's move on to fire, please. Thank you so much, Chief Narsh.
Thank you, council, and thank you,
And thank
public.
your staff. We appreciate
Yes,
them.
please,
Yes.
thank them 100%.
Hi, Chief.
Well, we got 480 cuts, so.
All right, let's pull that fire truck out and get rid of it.
so fire, fire, we're, you know, again, we can talk about comparables, we talk about NACFA, we talk about some of these other things. One of the most immediate, it's not apples to apples, but the township, you know, they're currently doing, I think they increased 4.2 something mils for their coverage, which equates to about $1.2 million for their, it's a larger area that they're covering, but about the same amount of residents. One of the things that I heard online, I just want to, for township residents, for village residents, so if you're getting this special assessment, and you're not getting both this special assessment, if we were to do it, and the NACFA one. These are completely separate. If you're a township resident, you'd be getting the NACFA one through the township. If you're a village resident, then you're covered within this. They're not charging the NACFA one to our village
Township
residents.
residents, but
Yeah.
I know what you're
Yeah,
saying.
if you fall under our police authority and you live in the village, then you don't pay into the NACFA one.
Thank you for that clarification.
And that's 4.2 mils, I'm sorry, I missed you on there.
Yeah, it was in the, I think they're meeting about that on the 18th.
Madam President?
That's what it-
Before we
it-
get on with going on to cut, can I make just a statement about the fire department?
Sure, Daniel, go ahead.
As many of you know from watching or seeing on May 13th meeting, I did get up with an emergency. I did have a medical emergency. It was a high pressure, high induced, which caused me to go into a simple partial seizure that I had out there in the parking lot. If we did not have a fire department here in our village, or a police department, I could have been out there flopping on the ground until the next person walked out of this building. And then by the time they called for help, it could have took 25, 30 minutes because that's happened to me before. And the fact that we had that gentleman right there in that white uniform standing there, or sitting there, I should say, was able to make sure that he got the call and got them here. As much as all this does hurt all of us to the bone to think about raising anything, think about the next time you got to pick up that phone and call. That gentleman right there, I could have lost my life, even though it wasn't life-threatening at the time, but I could have smashed my head in the ground and died. But I didn't because we had them here. It's that important.
Thank you,
And that's
Daniel.
what we need to look at. Thank you for letting me state that.
I know how important they are to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we're gonna
So when we're looking at the bottom
apologize
line.
ahead of time, Chief.
When we're looking at the bottom line of the 987,000, so again, compare that to 1.2 million, that for NACFA, I don't exactly know what NACFA number would be for us, or what that long-term would be, but just as a comparison. Also keep in mind, up in your,
Sorry, what was the comparison-ish?
so again, the township's NACFA special assessments, about $1.2 million.
1.2.
Yeah, a little bit more than that, but that's approximately what it is. 987,000 is what we're asking this year. And what that doesn't tell you is if you go back into the revenue line, they're also providing $220,000 approximately of cost recovery. So of that 987, we're getting, we're so around 750,000
So we're
of
at
what?
750 cost.
Yeah, cost to us.
After that wash out.
This is the one area that I did ask council for a little bit of growth. And it's because our only full-time firefighter, our full-time building official is the chief here. We've had our assistant chief, Kurt Nitschke, who's been working as basically full-time on part-time for years. And so the simple truth is, not only if we didn't do that, we would lose Kurt, because he's been trying to get scouted by other departments for fire chief, but he loves us, he wants to stay here. But we'd also lose this guy because he works more hours than probably anyone else in the community. Just very dedicated. He hates whenever I give him any kind of kudos, but like, again, hardest working person probably I've ever worked with. And so, as far as just his commitment to the community, a commitment to business owners as the building official. And so to give him any kind of reprieve into this, that I've asked for us to bring on Kurt as full-time as well. And so that is the one area of growth that I've asked for within our full-time wages. Again, their pay, the wages are split 50% on the fire department line, and then the building line, I think, for both of you. Yep.
A lot of these I don't see as, I don't see much to do with. What is contractual? It jumped from 28 to 40.
A lot of that is due to the inflation of the costs that we incur through running the station. We are not toggled with the village. I do not have an IT. I'm not protected under IT. They have VC3. We do not. We have simple Google emails. We're not protected under the Outlook program that they have here. I have to buy Windows 11 every year at Sam's for all the desktops. If a computer crashes, that comes strictly out of contractual. It doesn't come out of, building and grounds or other departments.
Okay, my only other question is capital improvement.
So that one is where I'm also looking for a little projected growth. We don't currently have the capabilities to do outside trainings in-house. As of Monday, we were in Grand Blanc Township. We collected $1,400 in cost recovery to host that class at their department. I'm looking to turn one of our bays into a training room where we can recoup all that money and train multiple departments in our area. In the packets that I left here for the public, I also included to you. You can see some of those numbers that we've shown growth. One of the biggest things that I'm most proud of with Kurt is that we are going to be the first department in the nation to beta test a food truck inspector program being put on by Jones & Bartlett. It's the nation's leading provider in EMS education. They chose Holly Fire, of all the fire departments in the nation, to actually beta test this program. We were the first ones to see the books and roll it out. Currently, we do not meet ADA compliance to host those trainings in-house. So I'd like to convert one of our bays that we're using maybe for storage of other things, that we could actually get some cost recovery coming back in to the village.
So that $10,000 for capital improvement would potentially, or would bring in revenue generation?
Yes, and that's basically just putting a furnace and a bathroom in.
Okay.
That's it. All right?
I have no further questions. Thomas?
I just had a comment for the contractual, because I have the actuals we have for the past 2 years. The budget reflects low on those last 2 years, so the 40,000 is actually more in line with what we actually spent the last 2 years.
Okay.
Like, we spent 43 and 44,000 respectively on those.
Madam
Council?
President, if you don't mind, I do would like to make 2 more comments.
Sure.
One of the comments I would like to make is, in the 19 months that I've been sitting in this position, we brought in over $277,000 in equipment, grants, funding, that did not go to the taxpayers at all. It was just equipment that was outdated that we were able to secure. I am sad to announce that yesterday I received a letter from Lisa McLean. We did not get the grant for the new ladder truck for 1.4 million, but we are constantly requesting additional fundage from outside sources to help fund the fire department. One of the other things that I would like to do is kind of stick up for Brian a little bit with his furnace. Last year, we were out there to his building twice for that same furnace. Now, what happens is that furnace is gonna catch fire. Now, we didn't only lose a building, but millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment that is housed in that building over a furnace for $10,000. That council, I understand we're trying to make tight cuts, but from a furnace from 1970, a raise of hands, how many homes are heated with a furnace from 1970?
Well, you came out to my house when I bought mine because my old boiler heater filled my house full of gas.
I just think that, you know, I understand I'm a taxpayer, I have young children too, I understand, but when it comes down to cost versus retention, and along with Chief Narsh with his staff, you know, we're looking at cutting 10,000 for a furnace, but what we could lose is the potential of millions and millions of dollars worth of buildings and equipment, so.
Council, consensus to put the furnace for Brian back in.
It does sound like a damn situation.
Yep, I
Yes.
support that motion.
Put the furnace back in, Tim. Thank you,
But
Chief,
that
for
means,
your
Brian,
input.
we want to see a furnace in.
And then, Madam, my last comment, you know, Kurt does way more than what is said. He takes over all the HDC meetings, he does commercial code enforcement, he does all the rental inspections for the Village of Holly, along with all the annual business inspections for every business in the town, that are all at no cost, right? Those are jobs that, if we do not retain Kurt, are gonna be coming back to me, on top of me being the fire chief, the building official, planning and zoning liaison, zoning board of appeals liaison. I can go on and on with some of my job titles, but
Basically,
we
you're
are
gonna get
so
rid of it.
lean, operating on such a lean budget already, that that's one of the reasons why I put that document out for the public, also on our Facebook page, just to kind of show a little bit of that transparency of how lean we are truly trying to operate on. I appreciate the time.
Chief, I hope that the community makes you feel as valued as you describe your team. Thank you.
One of the biggest roles that Chief also has is the cheerleader of the community and of his team. So like, for example, when we left that last public hearing, and it, you know, the community kind of was talking out against special assessment a lot, our police officers, our fire department felt like the community wasn't behind them. And I know a lot of people think that we're using them as scapegoats, but if you're looking at the budget, these are the areas that we could potentially cut. And him, Chief Narsh, Brian, are all the ones that are going to their departments and basically, hey, like, the council believes in you, you know, administration believes in you, and the community believes in you too. It's just a small representation of, that is speaking out in this. And so he's just done an amazing job of just keeping the motivation high, keeping people from leaving, because I can tell you that after the last meeting, almost many of our officers, police and fire, are updating their resumes.
Thank you.
No.
Council, do you see
I
any?
have a
Go
question.
ahead, Shannon.
I have a question. Would it be any type of cost saving to increase the number of full-time firefighters versus what we're paying out as, what I'm assuming, this $554,000 is like part-time, or how are we paying this?
We'd also have to up insurance and all of those other things.
Right, but if we
We
had,
have no full-time firefighters on the department.
but would it be beneficial to have, like, say, instead of just having all this on call, if we paid 6 full-time firefighters, or whatever number, because I don't know the numbers,
It would
but,
be minimum between 9 and 11, same with the police department. We run 24/7, 365. You have 2 personnel at that station, those timeframes. So you would have to increase that to 9
Okay.
or 11 to cover those shifts, along with sick and personal time. Now, my staff, we are the only fire department in Oakland County that's not full-time. So my staff would greatly appreciate to be full-time at one point. But we have a lot more to prove as a department to the community that we deserve that. And that's my goal to pitch in the next several years to the community and to you.
Chief, I don't think that you and your team have anything to prove. I think that this council has to figure out where to get more money to show you guys what you're worth.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam President.
I have to
Council,
agree with
anything-
Madam
Any other
President.
lines that you can consider cutting? I can't, not even the 10,000, because that's gonna generate revenue, which is what we need.
I can't find anything in there to cut.
Thank you, Buster.
The only thing I can think of cutting is vehicle repair and maintenance. Get rid of that old fire truck and buy a new one. I know that we're trying to save money,
You
but
just did.
no, the
No,
ladder truck.
Oh, they'll have,
The ladder truck that caught on
Well-
fire one time in the bag.
one thing
We
at a
go
time
one
here.
point 7 million.
Yeah. And he's got other grants out.
I know, I was just sarcastic. I was
Another
trying to
focus
be sarcastic about it.
Anyone, any lines that we can cut? Okay, no lines to cut there, thank you.
All right, so
Does the fire department fall in the DDA district?
community
Ooh, that's a
development,
good question.
one of the big,
Pardon?
She asked if.
Does the fire department fall in the DDA district? Perhaps they might be able to help with a bathroom and a furnace for our training spot. I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, Linda's not here.
Linda left, yeah.
Good
So,
job.
I like that thing. Out of that box, I like
Since
it.
that's been broached, the DDA
I'm
could do
trying.
parks, they could do all sorts of things.
Well, since
Yeah.
they're in the DDA district.
To be fair, the DDA is helping out with parks.
They do help out a lot, but it brings in revenue, and that's what makes me think is a revenue bringer.
Okay,
so,
Trying, guys, I'm trying.
council, let's take a break. Everyone go potty.
Thank you.
Let's be back at,
Got one. Could we have some porta potties outside?
9:20, please, 9:20. Resume. Who are we missing? We're missing Jim.
Jim Koskela. I think he's in the facilities.
Okay. Well, don't everybody look at him.
Come on, Tim Jim.
Lisa, will you call the roll, please?
Weinbrenner,
Here.
Wendell,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Koskela,
Here.
Cole. Here. Kyer,
Here.
Brandon.
Here, meeting's in session. We're going to resume with community development, please.
All right. Councilmember Ryan, do you want to ask your question that you asked beforehand? Just
All right, so
don't want to steal your thunder.
CDBG expenses, those are an in and out fund, correct?
Yes. So that's money that our community development block grant that we get from Oakland County. It's it's the same amount that goes in and out. That's what we just reprogrammed for some code enforcement expenses that we moved from previous items. There are, some of that is code enforcement. Also, we have some things that are also allocated for 2025 if it gets approved. That will be for ADA accessibility items that are at Lakeside Park. So benches and, was it just benches and picnic tables? I
Picnic
believe,
tables.
that are ADA accessible.
Plan review, developer build.
Plan review, is this, oh, sorry. Trying to get to this over here. Plan review, developer build, is this, Jeremy, is this row? You know?
Yes.
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 So this is for items that are, so we're doing a better job about if anyone is trying to do any kind of development within our community, that, we set up escrow accounts, we do so pushing the cost on anyone that's actually, utilizing the services. However, there are things that we need to do that we have to utilize this service for. Is that correct?
It's also for them to attend the.
Oh, it's also for them to be our planner and attendant.
Yes.
For the year.
Okay. Council, anything else? Do you see anything that could be cut from community development? I mean, most of that expense is the in and out of the CDBG.
So if it goes in and out, how come it still shows up there if it's it basically zeroes?
Because it
out?
has to
You
be
have to,
accounted
in
for.
accounting, you have to account for that to come in and come out.
There has to be receipts of all financial transactions. Council, do you have any other, can anything else be taken out in your opinion? Anything
I
at all?
don't see anything else can be taken out of it.
All right, Public Works, please.
Brian?
We talked a little bit about this earlier, full-time wages. Since there is no full-time wages in parks, cemetery, buildings and grounds, those all get taken out of the DPW wages here. Part-time wages, we use a seasonal person to water flowers downtown, weed the H at the parks, maintain some of that stuff.
Should I be getting paid for that?
Yeah.
Well, she did have a
and-
turtle
and-
problem.
And credit to one of my employees that came back, Danny Rasberg, he started a gardening program. So they're trying to get some of the flower beds downtown, different parks adopted, so that the villages and eating those costs or have to maintain those things with the limited resources that we have. Uniform allowance is a contractual thing. There's cold weather gear, that's what the 1,500, and you'll also see another uniform line in there. There's a contractual that we provide uniforms for our full-time employees. So you see two different uniform lines in there. One is contractual for cold weather gear, which is boots, gloves, and bibs, and then the other one is their daily wear that they are supplied with 5 shirts and 5 pairs of pants or shorts. This is where all the vehicle fuel is paid for out of this budget line. Equipment supplies and operating supplies are stuff that we would use at the DPW for repairs, acetylene tanks, oxygen tanks for welding and cutting, hand tools, any kind of tools and stuff that we would use, and those are spread out over a couple budgets, but that's where that stuff comes out of. Training, if we hire someone without a CDL, that's why that's over this year. We hired 3 individuals that had to have their CDLs, so we got those trained. Once again, we're running into the same problem that police and fire run into. We start out at about $20 an hour and top out at 25 unless they get some other water certifications or certifications. Like you said, you can go to many fast food restaurants and make about that same, and you're not required to come in the middle of the night and plow snow or get in a wet hole with 30-degree water, so. There's not, and a lot of people, since recreational marijuana's been passed, to have a CDL, it's still mandated by the federal government, you have to pass a random drug test, so.
Also on this too, and I don't mind if I kind of talk about this, but, so Brian is eligible to retire this summer. He's, through his, he's told that he'd stay on for the next 5 years, no. But he said he'd at least stay on until the end of the calendar year in order for us to make sure that we have a good transition. We're working on a legacy plan. We're working on making sure that all our other, the people that need it have the licenses needed to maintain our services. So when we're looking at training, we're also looking at some of those costs too, to get the proper water and sewer licenses.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Can you justify overtime for us, please? Because that's, really, that's the only line that I can even
A lot of the
consider.
overtime is done at the cemetery when we have weekend funerals. So that's where a majority of that overtime is from.
And weekend funerals aren't an option because people bought those plots and they have to be tended to?
Right, we charge extra for that, but, and we're looking at updating some of our costs because our costs are lower so that we make sure that we're matching our expenses with our revenues. But if it's a full burial, it takes 2 guys, a backhoe and a truck to do a full burial, and depending on how large of a funeral it is, the minimum's 2 hours for overtime, but most funerals are 2 to 4 by the time we set up, tear down, make sure everybody's satisfied with, you know, the person that the deceased is being laid out and buried correctly, and then we have site cleanup after that, and that, you know, so we try to keep things at a minimum.
I can't picture cutting overtime. Council, do you see any lines that you can consider cutting out?
The only one I can see about not cutting out fully is just making sure that we're only insuring vehicles that we use for fleet insurance.
And we just got a spreadsheet from Lisa, and we're verifying vehicles that we're gonna send out to auction and get those off of there because we're right at that cusp for a savings rate or a different rate. So we're working, all the departments are working to get some items out, vehicles that are not being used or ready for auction off the system.
Because I know we have 2 vehicles sitting far back over there, so.
One of
Council,
those
any
was
other
already
lines?
long ones.
Anyone?
Equipment, what is the 15K for equipment for?
We lease some vehicles to save some money, so we're obligated to our toolcat. I believe we're in the last year of that payment on that. So a couple of the vehicles we leased over like a 5-year period, so we have to, we take those out of different budgets depending on what they're used for, so.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, moving on to non-departmental.
I did want to also make a note that Brian talked about our fees, and they haven't been like, you know, this year at our budget, we proposed a fee schedule. It's not here, I mean, you can look it up, but we're not talking about it tonight. But staff worked, all of our departments, to do the first fee schedule that we've had. Many of our fees have not been also updated since the 80s, 90s. And so we actually looked at, like, you know, what are comparable costs, and all of that was presented at the budget work session. It's not really a topic of discussion tonight, but when we're talking about, we're hoping to see more, you know, for some of these costs, like, you know, funeral costs and all that. All right, it actually is meeting, you know, it's actually equaling out. The end is meeting the out of this as well, based on, you know, how we've updated our fees.
Are there any type of grants or anything? Do you look into that too, Brian? Reference on grants and that there for the DPW? For
Well, most of the
trucks,
grants-
vehicles, or anything?
Yeah, the grants would be more on the water sewer side, and the village has, the last couple of years, the ARPA funds that were federally sent out to the state, ran them through what they call the dwarf and SWIFT funds. I mean, I know this isn't general fund, but those grants, and I know there's been, say, if you call this office, we can get $250,000 instantly. Well, a mile of road, water and sewer is about $1 million. And a lot of those are matching grants. Well, if we're trying to cut $600,000 out of a budget, it's sort of hard to match $250,000. And what third of a mile do you want to start with? Tim mentioned the pacer ratings. In 2018, when they did the pacer ratings, Roe recommended we spend $1 million a year to maintain what we had at that time. 7 years later, we have not spent nearly enough to maintain what we had at that time, so.
Thank you, Brian.
The only question I have on non-departmental is I think it's contractual, 12,000.
I also wanted to add on Buster's comment about grants. We also, one of the things that Brian and I did, just because I had to submit it almost immediately once I started, and when I was identifying some of these things, we also submitted some congressionally funded requests for some of our water sewer improvements that we noticed we needed, and that was also just notified that that was denied as well. So,
Okay.
but, yeah,
All right, thank you,
yeah,
Tim.
just so you know.
Thank you.
Non-departmental on which line?
12,000 for contractual, please. Sounds like a Jeopardy question.
Yeah. All right. I'm probably gonna have to go into BSNA unless Lisa knew that one off the top of her head.
That could be VC3, the other one could have been BSNA.
Yeah, let me see.
While you're looking that up, what if we took a loan against this building as has been previously discussed? How much can we get?
I don't know what that, Vince is here, I mean, but, yeah, so he might be the best one to kind of give us maybe an estimate on that. But again, as far as like, because just being someone that's really familiar with the real estate and everything here, but again, I think the problem with that is that's not a long-term solution. All that's adding is another liability to us.
More interest,
More
payments in the
interest,
future?
you know, we're
Yes.
losing an asset, you know, for any of our other things. And so it's gonna hurt our credit rating, hurt all these other things that we're having to deal with. When we need actual bonds.
Order, please.
When we need bonds for, if we have an emergency issue, and we need bonds for actual emergencies, and we would.
Yeah, but give us a number.
Okay, yeah, I can get to it.
Thank you.
2.1 million. That's what the building is worth.
And how much did we pay for it? 550.
Or so.
All right, and I'm looking contractual, yeah.
With the park, might be more, probably more. But conservatively, 2 million. Yeah, you got 7 acres out there.
If they're allowed to talk, then everyone can talk. So that's a
No,
Actually,
the village
order.
president controls the
Order.
meeting. Allow it.
If that's a temporary
Order.
fix, you call a special election.
Order.
28 contractual, I'm sorry, I'm just looking up the amounts. So. Departments. Is there any other questions while I'm looking this one up, if I can?
No, I just wanted a number from you, Tim, if you can verify what we could maybe get for this building, and if you could see, what was it, the 12,000 for contractual, please.
Non-departmental.
Just a question, could we even sell this building? Because as far as I know, the land here is, yeah,
On Cyclone Park, yeah, I don't know the specifics of that yet.
okay.
I thought those could be changed anyway, can't they?
I'm sure,
I'm not proposing that.
right, but,
It depends what the deed restriction is.
Yeah, it depends
Because a
on the
lot of times
deed
it would revert back to
Oh,
whoever
previous.
donated, yeah, the previous person. Again, not knowing anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. So here, you can go over my shoulder right here. Contractual, monthly billing. On here, we have, I see the compactor that's out in the building grounds compartment, monthly monitoring. Is this our,
That's our guardian alarm, not guardian alarm, thumb alarm, that's what that's in there.
okay, billable copies. Oh, now our printer systems.
Copy machine
Yeah.
to Image Tech, so that's our copier. We lease the copier, and then we pay for copies as well, per copy.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what I'm seeing on here. It's monthly monitoring, non-department billboard copies are different copiers, different printers. Our contractual amount, mail protect lease, small amount. And that looks like,
So even if we were to move those and put them in the right department, they're also general fund funds.
yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds necessary. I can't imagine removing that line. Council, do you see any lines that you could consider cutting?
I'm not cutting, just have a question.
Sure.
Utilities, I guess I'm stuck on utility stuff, but $60,000?
I believe those are streetlights, for the most part, yeah, I can check that.
Ouch.
And consumers charges us as they go out and replace them with LEDs, but based on the type of bulb that's in there, there's a different rate, so every streetlight is charged differently.
That makes sense. Probably street lights and traffic lights.
Do we need them? Okay. So after the cuts that we made, what did we bring the deficit down to, please?
We're back up to 494,000 in the deficit.
Okay, so 494. So the options for council to consider in the future will be a special assessment or those cuts, plus perhaps putting up this building for lien. What else? What are the other options, council?
I think the other options would be to cut staff, but not just from police and fire. Like, we need to cut staff from every department. It would have to be every department, and we would need to look at no funerals on the weekends, no, only mowing, period, and keeping that up. Like, we'd have to lose all the basics, like everything.
Well, also, remember, we're on a timeline for all of these things, that we
Right.
have to do it. And so even the bond process is not a quick process. It's not something we can do overnight. I'm not sure what that timeline looks like, and we can inquire about it, but it isn't something that happens quickly.
So then a consideration for council might be, you do the special assessment for this first year, and then by the second year, if you utilized other cuts and bonds, you don't have to do as big of one the following year, or perhaps one at all.
Yeah, and a point of clarification for the community too, because I hear a lot of people talking about the duration. The duration is just the creation of the special assessment district, how long that district exists. Every year, council will vote for how much that
Approval.
special assessment
Okay.
would be. So every year, you have to do public hearings and all of that, similar to what the township's doing for non-fund.
In the mill pond, we have to
And
do
the,
it in the mill pond.
yeah, in the mill
yes.
pond, yep, for the aquaweed treatment.
Okay,
And special assessments can be suspended at any time. So if something came up and we were able to sell a building or do something, you can suspend a special assessment.
Yes, but I mean, like, at some point, like, you know, tax bills have gone out and stuff like
Right,
that year.
things have been
So,
paid,
yeah,
okay.
so it would be for whatever fiscal year that would be, yeah, so.
All right, so for the purpose of tonight's meeting, making this budget work without the special assessment, we still have to come up with the almost 500,000. So would that be like either taking the loan out with collateral from this building or through the water fund, or how do we get that number?
So I have a comment on that. I did do some research, and I did go to the bank. The bank does not do mortgages for municipalities, so there's no putting the building up for collateral. Never, they do offer commercial loans, but as Tim was saying, now you're taking on a liability. They've never, I've called the bank, they've never given a loan to a municipality based on the criteria that we did for commercial loans. So they were talking with our attorney to see if there would be a document that could be written up. So that's in the works, but I haven't gotten an answer back yet.
Right, but for the purpose for this, it's supposed to be temporary anyways, until we either get like a special election going or the special assessment district going afterwards if that doesn't pass.
I mean, we have 10 days.
Right.
So I'm saying, like, you know, like, we'd have to work all of this out in 10 days. So,
9 days.
well, I mean, and we also have Juneteenth, we have a lot, you know, weekends, all these other things in there too.
Well, I'm just
As far as
saying
banks,
today's
all
the
these
10th,
other,
so-
not only just us, I'm just saying, like, you know, banks and other departments too.
Right, I'm just saying, because that's why we're all here today, is to make that budget work. And right now, we can't do that without some other money coming in. So we have to decide, how are we gonna get that? Like you said, we can't do it through the bank. Is that something we can do through the water?
Amber and Shannon both spoke on staff cuts. Can either of you come up with a way to make cuts where it stays a cut. I know we talked about cutting the one line on police, but that raised a different line. So that one doesn't count, it's not. Can either of you think of staff cuts where we come up with the other, is it 400? 500?
Not really, not with safety issues, I mean, I wouldn't ask a police officer to be out here by himself.
By themselves.
Is the same, I wouldn't ask a firefighter or paramedic to be on their own either, as if they could. It would have to be from, and cutting one poor woman out of the office isn't gonna make a dent in any of this. I mean, it just isn't.
Daniel, Jim, or Buster?
No.
Okay,
Not on,
One, what's one gonna be?
right.
It's not gonna
Also,
be.
someone else has to pick up that one.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're going to adjourn, we're gonna move into a town hall, and the public will have their chance to speak, to ask questions.
Madam
It's gonna be a lot less formal.
Before we go through that, can I make one council comment at all?
Sure.
I talked to Brian about this, and I won't know if I was very clear in how I was trying to say this and everything else, but I'm trying to look at apples and not apples and oranges. But in a hypothetical world, let's say that we eliminated our water bond debt, that we have, because everybody's gonna pay about the same amount in their property tax increase from these. Is it possible that we could say, well, and we end the water bond debt because we don't, and then but your taxes are gonna go up about the same amount that the water bond debt was. So it's not like we're borrowing from the water and sewer fund, but we kind of are because we eliminated that bond debt.
Tim?
I don't know if I made that even make any sense at all, I don't know.
Lisa, do you have, yeah, I mean.
Again, you would take money
cutting off
out
your nose
of
to spite
that
your face.
sewer and water, that if anything broke, we're,
Well, I wasn't trying to take anything we already have, I'm just saying, I don't know.
in order to pay off that bond debt, we would have to take money out of our sewer and water fund.
Yeah, you'd have to
It
take from
doesn't
fund
go
balance, because you still have the bond payments. That's what that sewer debt covers, is strictly bond payments. We have a fixed cost before anybody turns on their tap or flushes their toilet. That's a
Yeah,
fixed cost, that's the fixed cost of the bonds, that's the $37.05 a month. The variable rate is the commodity rate, so the more water you use, the more you pay. We pay for we bill in 1,000 gallons, so you're paying $8 and some change for 1,000 gallons of water, which is roughly 8 cents a gallon. You can't go to the store and buy a gallon of water for 8 cents. You're paying roughly twice that, about $17 for 1,000 gallons to treat it. It costs more to treat the water than it does to produce the water because there's a lot more restrictions. We discharge to a trout stream, so we're regulated by Eagle. We're regulated by Eagle for our bonds that we took out. There's an obligation there to pay those back. So if you suspend that payment, you still have to take that money. So you're gonna take it out of fund balance, you're gonna reduce your fund balance.
Okay, I
So
just was trying to
It's the same
exhaust all
thing as
options.
bonding this building out. You're taking from one resource and creating a liability now, so.
All I was doing was just trying to put that all out
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Motion by Wendell. Second. Support by Kyer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Everyone take a,
Can we just do 5?
let's just move right into it.
I'll move right into it?
Let's move right into town hall.
Okay, and so,
Does anyone want to leave first? Council, you do not have to stay. You are welcome to.
in fact, because it's not agenda items and such, that it probably, council would not be able to discuss it. Staff can discuss it, we can do all that, but it should be probably a staff-led thing to answer questions and all of that. Because I don't want to get you guys in trouble. So,
Well, if any members of council want to stay, we can move into the audience. We can circle up. We don't have to
No.
sit here.
all right, yeah, so I guess department heads, we just want to grab some seats up front too, like, just pull some chairs over here. No, we'll just do it. Thank you so much.